What's going on, party people? It's your boy, the man, the myth, the legend, RizPod, bringing you guys the third episode of the RizPod. And today we're going to be talking about something pretty insane, pretty fun, something pretty relevant to the sports world right now. And that's the NFL playoffs, where we're going to predict everything that's happening, who we got as our Super Bowl picks. But before we get into all that fun stuff, I'm going to introduce the two members that we have on the pod today. First off, we're going to bring my boy, Spencer. Spence, what's going on?
What's good? Happy to be here. Talk some football. I'm excited.
Yeah, let's do it. And then our second guest, coming all the way from the West Coast out there in Seattle, we got Michael Brady. Michael, how you doing? You're muted, King.
There we go. First time on a
Yeah.
podcast. Ready to go, though. Excited to be here. Glad Rizzo asked. And yeah, I got some football takes for you.
And yeah, let's do it. So pretty much what we're going to do is just kind of go round by round, pick our picks on who's going to advance, who's going to win every matchup. And it's going to lead, obviously, to this year's Super Bowl, which we're going to end up picking a winner. So a lot of games to get through, a lot of good teams, a lot of fluky teams, in my opinion. So let's start off with the first matchup of the playoffs, and that's going to be the 2 and 7 seed Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. So I'll take the first pick. I'll give my little predictions on who I have winning this matchup, and then we'll kind of go from there. So this one's a fun one. I think when you look at these two teams, if you look at what they were in the start of the season compared to where they are now, it's two different stories. Because earlier on the season, the Miami Dolphins did beat the Buffalo Bills, which was a pretty good game. I think it was a pretty close game. I think it was 21-19. Miami did edge out the win, and it was kind of a gruesome game. Josh Allen was out there just dishing the football, dishing the pigskin. I think he threw for almost 400 yards, and the Buffalo Bills only put up 19 points. But look, given what's happening to the Miami Dolphins when it comes to injuries, such as Tua Tagovailoa, just getting concussions, just getting sacked, just not being the same player that he is, you got a third-string quarterback going out there in Buffalo on the road against arguably one of the best teams in football right now. Do I think Skyler has any Skyler magic? I don't. And to be honest, the spread on the game is 9.5 by Vegas, and I'd be shocked to see the Miami Dolphins even cover that. So unless Jalen Waddle has another big game, and he had two big games against the Bills, having 200-yard games, but I think it's pretty cut and dry. I think the Buffalo Bills have so much more to play for, obviously with the situation that happened with Damar Hamlin, just everybody wanting to win bad in Buffalo, especially with the Damar Hamlin. I think they're going to come out, and I think they're going to clobber the Dolphins for my prediction is honestly like 33-10. I genuinely think it's going to be an absolute massacre. But that's just my opinion. I just don't think Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are enough to beat this Buffalo Bills team.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think it would have been, even if Tua was healthy and ready to go, I still would pick the Bills, but it at least would have been an interesting game because, like you said, they did win that first matchup. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was the first of like the Tua concussion saga, right? He got hurt in that game, unless I'm mistaken.
I was gonna say, no, he did, and Teddy Bridgewater ended up coming back in, and I think not that Tua is this elite quarterback in my opinion, but I think he brings something that Skyler and Teddy Bridgewater don't, and that's someone that's willing to go deep. Yeah. And when you have two playmakers in Waddle and Hill, just throw the ball to them and pray for the best. So, but continue on your take.
What he brings that Skyler doesn't bring, at least, is that he belongs on an NFL roster. I mean, I don't know if you guys watched any of that Jets-Dolphins game last week. It was like an eyesore watching Skyler Thompson out there. It would be an awesome story if he comes out and puts together some incredible performance. But the fact is, he's not going to. I think the fact that the line is only at 9 points is crazy. I think they probably lose by 20, like you said, Rizzo. They have the weapons to maybe scrape across a couple like fluke touchdowns, but I think this one's pretty cut and dry. If Teddy was starting, maybe there would be some intrigue, but even then, I don't think so. I mean, I think this one is kind of obvious.
Yeah. Michael?
Yeah, I feel pretty similar to you guys. I really like Mike McDaniel as a coach. I thought he's one of my favorite new coaches this year. Very entertaining, and I feel like he did a really good job with Tua. And I feel like with Tua, they're a much better team that could have made this interesting. Because I don't view Buffalo's defense as intimidating as it might have been in the past. But the problem is, like Spencer said, they have just nobody at quarterback. Just it's going to be a blowout. I feel like Buffalo's kind of got some momentum now. And I just don't think this game's even going to be close. So, similar to you guys, I would be betting on the Bills here. I'm definitely picking the Bills to win this game. Miami has the weapons to make it interesting, but unless Skylar Thompson comes out and has some like heroic performance where he turns into like a really good quarterback, there's just no way they're going to be able to keep up because their defense isn't very good either. So, yep, I'm going Buffalo with you guys there for sure.
I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of a bold pick by all of us. I think it's going to be really, really tough along the way. But no, I think, like you said, Spencer, I don't even think with Jesus Christ behind center that this Dolphins team really has a chance against Buffalo. So pretty cut and dry. So the next matchup we're going to go to is one I'm a little more excited on because I think we might have some different takes. Spencer, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one. It's going to be the 4 and 5 matchup. It's going to be the Jags versus the Chargers. Who do you got?
I'm glad you're letting me take the lead on this one. This is the game that I'm the most excited about this weekend. I think it's a preview for, obviously, I mean, there's a debate if Justin Herbert is already a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He would be like 5th. He's probably 6 or 7, something like that. But it's a debate. Trevor Lawrence is going to be at some point a top 5 quarterback. These are 2 future superstars in the league, both getting their first taste of the playoffs against each other. I wish they were playing other teams so I could separately root for both of these teams. I just have like a soft spot for the Chargers. I like what they're doing over there. And then the Jaguars, they're kind of like how the Browns were before they got a certain quarterback where you kind of just want to root for them because they're always not that good and they're kind of an underdog. And now both of these teams really are pretty good. I am going to take the Chargers in this game, but it's the one that I'm the most unsure about. You look at the Chargers defense, especially their pass rushers, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa against the Jaguars offensive line. That's just a mismatch. I don't think Trevor Lawrence has had to face a pass rush like that on their current win streak, but it's a dangerous thing to face a red hot team coming to the playoffs. And I don't remember exactly how many games in a row the Jaguars have won, but it's a lot. So I think this is going to be a really close game. I'm excited for it. I have the Chargers squeaking it out just because I believe their quarterback's a little better right now. I think overall their roster is better, but I really think both of these 2 teams could end up being like consistent competitors for years to come in the AFC, and I'm really excited to get like the preview of that.
No, that's totally fair. Before I give my takes, Brady, or Michael, I'm going to let you take over because I actually have a different opinion on this. So I'll let you kind of go in between.
I'll go. So this was definitely, when I was looking at all the matchups, the hardest one for me to predict personally. I didn't have, I really like both these teams, like Spencer was saying. They got really good young quarterbacks, really high-powered offenses, and I think it's going to be a very exciting game. I'm glad it got the Saturday night time. And even according to Vegas, I'm pretty sure it's the closest spread. Last time I looked, it was 1.5. Chargers were favored. So I think this is honestly kind of a coin flip. When I'm looking at this matchup and kind of breaking it down, the one thing I really like for the Jaguars is I think they have a much better coach. I don't like Brandon Staley's philosophy of always going for it on 4th down. I think it can be good in some areas and not in others. And I think Doug Peterson's done a fantastic job turning this team around. I mean, he's been phenomenal as a coach, and he's won a Super Bowl for a reason, right? So, and as far as a quarterback play, I feel like Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, this is a huge game for both of them. I believe this is Herbert's first playoff game, right? So this is going to be, and obviously it's Lawrence's, so this is going to be very entertaining. When I had to actually sit down and really decide on this game, I just believe that the Chargers ultimately have more talent on their team. I think the Jaguars could bring the momentum of beating the Titans last week into this matchup and roll a little bit further, but at the same time, that could have been their playoff game. That was like a playoff game. It does kind of take a lot of energy out of you when you play a really hard-fought game like that, and the Chargers just rested. I mean, they played some guys and stupidly got Mike Williams hurt, but that's something to look at. But I also really like Keenan Allen. I think he's really their best receiver. So I like the weapons for the Chargers. I think it's going to be a very close game, but I'm taking the Chargers in a close one.
Yeah, and I agree with pretty much everything you guys are saying. I think it's going to be a coin flip. It's a great, close matchup. But honestly, the reason why I'm going to take the Jags on this one is because, Michael, of something you brought up, which I think is a very key aspect for this matchup, and that's coaching. I think when you have two young quarterbacks and genuinely like two younger teams, the Chargers have for sure a lot more veterans. I mean, you look at the Chargers roster from top to bottom, I think you can, there's not really a debate, but they have like a top 3, top 4 roster in football. Got Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Derwin James. Like the list goes on and on. Like they have genuinely a stacked team. But I think when it comes to the playoffs, it's all about coaching, and it all comes down to what team is hot. And the Jags are hot right now. They're 7-2 in their last 9 games. Their defense has been pretty solid. I know the last few opponents they've had have been terrible. The Texans, the Titans, the Jets.
Josh Dobbs isn't a franchise quarterback?
I mean, listen, he played like it. I got to give him some props
well
for someone that didn't play all year to come into it and make it a close game. Good for him. But I also think being at home is a big part of it as well. Like the Jags fans are going to be rowdy. And we've never seen Justin Herbert play in a playoff game. I think Herbert, I don't want to say he's overrated because the guy's got talent. I mean, in his last 5 games, I was kind of doing a comparison between Herbert and T-Law. And honestly, like their numbers are pretty same. Herbert throwing for 1,400 yards. He has 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. While Trevor Lawrence has 1,300 yards thrown, 8 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And obviously one team being the Jaguars have been a lot more hot than the Chargers. But when I look at just kind of coaching, I think Doug Peterson has that experience. I think Doug Peterson has this kind of hold with this team. I think with Travis Etienne being a breakout star that he's been, Trevor Lawrence, just having Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, who used to be a former Giant, is playing out of his mind. You have Christian Kirk, who's looking like a number 1 receiver. I think the Jaguars have a lot more to play for than the Chargers, just because I don't know if the Chargers are hungry enough. That could be a bad take, but I just think with the poor coaching that the Chargers have, because their roster should have been 12-4, 12-5 this season. And that's, I think, with as many close games as the Chargers have been in this season, it's pretty underwhelming to see their record only being 10-7 or 11-7 or whatever they are. So I think I'm going to make the little bold pick and take the underdog here, with it being the Jaguars.
Yeah. One thing we're not pointing out too is the Jags rolled these guys in like week 4, week 5. It was like 38-10, I think, something like that. Killed them.
That was coming off Herbert's injury, though.
Right.
That's true. It is interesting with us talking about like the difference in quality between these two head coaches, which is obviously Doug Peterson has won a Super Bowl. Brandon Staley has been like largely clowned on. You're right. They should have 12 wins this year. They should have made the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Is he coaching for his job in this game? It's a possibility. It really is a possibility. So I'm going to stick with my pick because I just think Herbert is better than Trevor Lawrence right now. Trevor Lawrence didn't look good last week. I think he's still young. He's coming into his own. But, I mean, home field advantage is going to be rowdy. The coaching mismatch. Christian Kirk actually looks like he deserved that contract after everyone clowned them. I like the pick of the Jaguars. I'm rolling with the Chargers myself, but it really is a coin flip for me.
Yeah, no, and just to add something to what you were saying, Rizzo, I do agree with some of the things you were saying. Like, I do think that Herbert's a little bit overrated. I just think he has a talent, but I don't think he's proven it necessarily up to this point. But I still think he's better than Lawrence. But the things I like about the Chargers, there's 2. One is that they haven't had a home field this whole season. So I feel like them playing on the road isn't as much of a mismatch as it might be a team that has a serious home field advantage and really benefits from playing at home. And the other is that since I think it was like the second half of the season, the Chargers pass defense has been much better. I think they're like number 2 in the NFL in pass defense. It's easy for them to run on, but that's also not the strength of the Jaguars team. So I feel like when you're looking defensively, I think there is more. I think the Chargers defense has really turned up as the season's gone on. And I think, they've won 3 in a row. I feel like they're really starting to get hot when it matters. And I think that at the end of the day, I think the talent disparity is going to be more important than the coaching.
And that's fair. And I think like we've been talking about, like this is probably going to be the toughest game so far for this whole slate. And it's kind of a coin toss. But my pick on the Jaguars really comes down to just better coaching, it being a home field advantage, as well as kind of just betting against Justin Herbert. I want him to prove me wrong. This guy has top tier arm talent. People are considering him top 5. He was supposed to win MVP compared to some people. Yeah. So I want to see him live up to the hype.
He doesn't have that vintage moment yet. He doesn't have like that moment where you're like, okay, I can stamp it. He really is that guy. And we'll see if that comes this weekend.
Yeah. So a little bit difference of opinion. So we'll see come the second round how that kind of plays out for the rest of our brackets. To finish off the first round of the wild card division for the AFC, we're going to go with the Bengals and the Ravens. And Michael, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I think it'd be the biggest blowout of the first round of the playoffs. Like, I think the Bengals are gonna stomp the Ravens. And honestly, when the line opened up at 6.5, I think that's because they thought Lamar was gonna play. I was really hoping Lamar would play because I think that people would get a false sense of like Lamar's been good this year. He hasn't been. Even when Lamar was healthy, their offense was awful. Since they lost Bateman, they haven't been able to move the ball at all this whole season. They have an elite defense, but the Bengals also have a really good defense, and ultimately they have a much, much better offense. And, you look at all the weapons they have, you don't need to sit here and talk about Chase and Higgins and Mixon forever. But that on top of the fact that, I feel like obviously they just did beat them last week, but on top of that, like the Bengals are really, really good. And I don't believe that the Ravens are going to be able to score, maybe not even a touchdown, to be honest. Like their defense, for the Baltimore to win this game, I think they have to get a defensive touchdown. They would have to like just make Joe Burrow's life hell and get like 7 sacks, like we saw in the Super Bowl. So I don't know. I'm feeling really confident here about the Bengals, and I think that this is not going to be a very close game.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. As one of the biggest Joe Burrow stands that I know, I don't think it's going to be close at all. I agree with you in some aspect. Even if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, Baltimore's best shot at this is being like a 10-13 game. It's just outclassing the Cincinnati Bengals, playing the clock, just running the ball the entire time, just being really gritty. And is it possible for that to happen? Like, I think it can be. Like, I think Harbaugh can coach this team to having a slow, gritty win. Is it possible? Yes. Do I think it's very likely? Not at all. Like, I think Joe Burrow, with all the weapons that he has, and with the Cincinnati Bengals defense, honestly, being pretty solid on the second half of the season, I don't see how the Ravens can compete. My prediction, honestly, is I think the spread at 6.5 was like that, like a lock. I think Cincinnati wins by 2 scores, like at least.
Yeah.
And there's really not much to say. Like I don't, like you said, we can go on and on of all these weapons, how good the Bengals are on both sides of the field, but I just think it's pretty cut and dry. Just like the Bills, I just don't think the Ravens with a backup quarterback is going to be the Super Bowl led team from last year and Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think this one is quite as obvious as the Skylar Thompson Dolphins against the Bills, just because, like you guys have been saying, Harbaugh is a great coach. He does have a Super Bowl ring. This is a good defense. Remember that playoff game a couple years ago where the Steelers turned it over the first like 4 drives against the Browns and the Browns beat them? That feasibly could happen against a good Ravens defense. It's not going to. Like, I picked the Bengals, but I don't even know if Huntley or Anthony Brown is going to be the starter. They're both terrible. Huntley had me fooled for a couple of games last year, and then this year he's just been atrocious. The offense was bad before Lamar even got hurt. It's funny because I'm such a big vibes guy, and the Bengals have great vibes right now. They're hot. They're a cool, trendy team, and the Ravens vibes are just like bad. Like no one knows what's going on with Lamar. I think he probably could play through this injury if he really wanted to. I mean, if I was him, like your receiving core sucked last year, and then you trade away your best wide receiver, who is also best friends with Lamar Jackson, and don't add any receiver. Like, I think he's done with the organization. I think the vibes inside the building are probably a lot worse than we even know in the public. I think they're going to get rolled. I think this will be like the big, almost, I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but like the beginning of the end of this era of Ravens football, where they're going to have to start like being like, okay, are we even going to extend Lamar? They'll tag him, trade him. I don't know. But like, I think this will be the like final bow on what's been really a very, very, very disappointing season for the Ravens.
And I do want to comment on that because I think you're very much right. I think if Lamar Jackson really wanted to play, he very certainly can. But I think he's playing for a contract. Like, I think he's playing it safe. I think he wants to leave. I think he wants to go to an organization that has better talent. Could it be the Jets? I don't know. A lot of people think so. But I think Lamar genuinely is sitting out for the better of his future. And like, I think I'm totally on your point, Spence. Like, I think the Ravens have a lot more issues than the public really knows. And I think that's going to show come this weekend of football.
Yeah.
Michael, any final thoughts before we move on to the NFC side?
Nope. I completely agree with you guys. I think if I was Lamar, I wouldn't want to play in this game either. Because I mean, what are you going to show your suitors that you can't score? Like they're not going to be able to score with Lamar or without Lamar. It doesn't, and he just risks his injury, and he's clearly fed up with the team. So yeah, I think that's an interesting point to the turmoil of Baltimore. Something I didn't put too much thought into because I just look at the teams and I'm like, this isn't even going to be this isn't going to be close. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty
And
simple. Go ahead.
And Baltimore's been dominating Cincy. I mean, obviously, Cincy had their run last year, but Baltimore's been the main player in that division for a long time. Like, I think Cincinnati's going to really want to lay it down on them. So that's why I like still picking Cincy, no matter how high the spread gets. Like, I just think they're going to really lay it on Sunday Night Football, which also sucks. This is a Sunday Night Football game. Like, don't know who decided that. Even if Lamar was playing, this is going to be such a bad game. So, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. Pretty solid point so far for the first round in the AFC. We're going to move it over to the NFC, which is the matchup I'm most excited about. It's America's team versus the GOAT, Tom Brady-led Buccaneers. I'll kind of start off with this one. So, being from New York and not being a Jets fan, but just kind of seeing Tom Brady's greatness throughout the entirety of my life, I've gained an appreciation for Tom Brady instead of a hatred. And just seeing him go to the Bucs, seeing him win a Super Bowl there in his first year, I'm pretty sure, coming back after retirement, and seeing that this Bucs team being as bad as they've been, but somehow still making it to the playoffs. I think when you look at this Cowboys team has had a great season, right? You got Dak Prescott, you got Tony Pollard, who's emerged as the superstar running back, Zeke, who's scored a touchdown in like 10 straight games. You got CeeDee Lamb coming out, and then you got the rest of the people like Noah Brown, who's having a solid season. You got Michael Gallup. Then you look at this defense, and the Cowboys have not been known for their defense since I've been watching football for as many years. But you got Micah Parsons. This front seven has been elite. I haven't even talked about the offensive line at all. Like, this Cowboys team on paper is solid. But here it comes where I'm a little wary of them. You got Mike McCarthy, who's been clowned his time in Dallas as being a horrible clock in-game manager, just horrible play calls. Like you were saying, Spencer, just terrible. I don't know. Like, I think he's coaching for his job. Jerry Jones mentioned a comment saying that he's not.
He should be.
He should.
He's a Jerry Jones puppet. He's not going anywhere.
Right. And I think like you guys were saying, he should be. You have all this talent. You have a great regular season, and now you're going on the road in Tampa with Tom Brady. I don't care who Tom Brady has on his team. If you have Tom Brady, regardless if he's fucking a senior citizen, Tom Brady knows how to win games. Todd Bowles has proven to not be this elite coach as a lot of people have thought.
He's also terrible.
Yeah, he's also very bad. But at the end of the day, Tom Brady is like LeBron James. Give him a person on the sideline. He'll do the rest. I think with Todd Bowles being a defensive-minded coach, I think with so much to play for, I'm going to edge the Buccaneers winning here at home. To think that Tom Brady's a 3-point underdog at home in the playoffs is crazy, because at the end of the day, I saw this little clip between Tom Brady and Mike Evans on the sidelines. Mike Evans was like, "You're 6-0 against the Cowboys?" And Tom Brady's like, "Yeah, like just kind of like shrugging it off." I don't think he's worried about it at all. I think he almost likes being an underdog against this good team. And a big thing to point out is Dak Prescott leads the league in interceptions. Cooper Rush was a better quarterback for this Dallas Cowboys team than Dak Prescott has been, which is insane to say. And the fact that the Buccaneers have done a pretty bad job this season in garnering turnovers, I think if Dak Prescott continues to go on the trajectory that he's going on, and if the Bucs can get hot with it being at home, with them playing for the GOAT Tom Brady, who could be playing his last game in Tampa or in the NFL as a whole, I think the Bucs have a lot more to play for. And I think the Bucs in general are going to have a better game plan than the Cowboys. Like, the Cowboys are just going to run down your throat and then do a play action, a CeeDee Lamb, see what happens, throw it up on the field. I think that's how it's going to be. But Tom Brady, Tom Brady's going to look for the deep ball. You got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin. If that's not there, you just dump it off to Fournette or Royce White or whoever, or Rashad White or whoever's the backfield for him. So I think just in terms of that, I got to go with the Buccaneers. That might be a hot take, but I learned to never bet against Tom Brady, and I'm not going to do it this time.
I'm actually with you. I also learned that lesson the hard way, to never bet against Tom Brady. I will say I am a certified Cowboys hater, but I do I do really believe this is me being unbiased. Like we're talking about the coaching matchup in the Jaguars and the Chargers. It doesn't really even apply in this game because both coaches stink. I mean,
Yeah.
the insistence from Todd Bowles on making sure that Byron Leftwich has them run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. When you have the GOAT at quarterback and a running game that stinks, it's crazy. Their game planning has been horrible. They've had some true, like the fact that they lost to the Panthers. I think they lost to the Saints. Like some of the losses they've had in this season have been pathetic. And I saw a stat that I think when they get in the 2-minute drill, or just if they're down late in the game and they need to pick up the offense quick, Tom Brady calls the plays. And when he calls the plays, the offense dominates. Like it's strictly, I think, the coaching that sucks. And I think Tom Brady, with this being, like you said, maybe his last game in the NFL, definitely his last game in Tampa, I think. He's going to take the reins, and the Cowboys have really bad vibes right now. They came in and played my Commanders last week and got stomped. I mean, it was ugly. Dak looked terrible. It was a really, really bad game for them when they had a chance to roll over a team that had nothing to play for and go into the playoffs like riding high in a game that they were still potentially fighting for the number 1 seed in that game and the NFC East crown, and they just fell completely flat. Like you said, Dak leads the league in interceptions despite missing, I think, 5 games. Dak Cousins, as I like to call him, he's yet to show me a moment in his career where he's in the playoffs in a big game been that guy and got it done. Like I feel like Tony Romo kind of had that clutch factor back in the day. I don't think Dak has that. I think I like, as much as the Bucs have disappointed me and lost me money this season, I just think Tom Brady versus Dak Cousins, Mike McCarthy, the bad vibes over there. I think the Bucs are going to win. I don't think Brady goes out sad at home.
Yeah, I like the Dak Cousins because it is very true. I feel like Dak's kind of been more overrated than he really deserves. Like, I mean, I feel like he hasn't proven much in his career, and I feel like he's, like Rizzo said, he leads the league in interceptions, not very impressive. When I look at this Cowboys team, I feel like I followed them pretty closely because I had a lot of their fantasy football players this year. They have a really freaking good run game, like really good. And if they lean on that, I could see them really just pounding Tampa Bay because their defensive line, their front seven is not what it used to be when they won the Super Bowl. And I could see them really getting after it and just moving the ball really easily in the run game. So when I look at that, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Then you think about the defense, right? The defense was like elite most of the season. But the last 3-4 weeks, they have fallen off a cliff. Like they're giving up, like Spencer just said, a bunch of points to the Commanders. I mean, with what, Sam Howell's playing quarterback? So that to me is a little bit tricky. Like, what version of this Cowboys team are we getting? And then I look at the Bucs, and I'm going to be honest, I am the biggest Tom Brady fan you'll ever know. The biggest one, all right? I've watched almost all their games this season. This is the worst team he's ever had that I can remember. I mean, I can't believe they're in the playoffs. This is worse than the Patriots team that missed. I mean, they cannot, they are, like Spencer was saying, the coach is awful. The offensive coordinator is awful. The defense has not been impressive. They can't run. I don't know what Mike Evans has been doing this whole season. He had his breakout week. So if they can keep that momentum going, then, I think they can go somewhere. But ultimately, none of that matters. Because what it comes down to is this. What's the Dallas Cowboys when they enter the playoffs? They're the Dallas choke boys because all they do is choke, okay? And then who's on the other side? Tom Brady, the GOAT, who wins every fucking game he ever plays in the playoffs. I mean, come on. Like, I looked at this, I said, wait a second, the Cowboys are favored? Like, this is literally just free money. I'm going to throw, I don't know how much on that and be my biggest bet of the weekend. I mean, there's no way. There's just simply no way. I didn't even know he was 6-0 against the Cowboys. Like, that's even just another cherry on top. Tom Brady is not losing to the most overrated franchise in all of sports who finds a way to choke because at the top of the organization, Jerry Jones is a fraud. He's an awful owner. He ruins a team from above. He has his coach. He runs it. It's a terrible coach all the time. And he just does whatever Jerry says. And why do you think they keep losing? So this isn't any different. Dallas is already spiraling downwards. Bucs had a couple good games. I feel pretty confident that Tampa's winning this one.
They need a great owner like Dan Snyder, I think. We'll hand him over. But I one little quick tangent I want to point out too with the Todd Bowles thing. The only reason the Bucs lost their playoff game that they lost against the Rams last year is because Todd Bowles didn't dial up a deep safety to cover Cooper Kupp in like the last 30 seconds of the game before it would have went to overtime. The only reason he is the head coach of this team is because Bruce Arians just handed the job to him because they're buddies. It's a travesty that he gets to even coach Tom Brady. But yeah, I like that we're all in agreement that the GOAT is going to manhandle the Fraud Boys this weekend.
Yep.
And I do want to point that out too, because like that was almost the greatest comeback in playoff history before, besides the Super Bowl. Like, yeah, they were literally down. Tom Brady came back, got them the lead, and then a 40-yard deep pass, like you were saying, just a terrible coaching decision, and then Matthew Stafford and those frauds end up winning the Super Bowl. But I love that tangent that you went on, Michael, about just the Cowboys, because I strongly feel that as well. You have that much talent, and you're going to go out sad to an 8-9 Tom Brady team, and it is his worst team. I think I saw a stat I somewhere on Twitter saying that since Tom Brady has started a season in football, this is the first time he's ever gone under 500. And the fact that he's still in the playoffs at age 45, I don't think Tom Brady's going to go out sad to the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm glad that we're all in agreement.
There's been a lot of shit in his personal life too, right? That's really just been coming up this season. And I feel like that, on top of sucking all season, on top of clearly not liking Dallas, and just I feel like he wants to prove a point, because everyone's, they're looking at him and saying, is he done? Like, is he going to retire? First of all, I don't think he's even close to retiring. Like, he could be a Raider. That could 100% happen. I feel like he's not retiring until he wins the Super Bowl. So unless he wins it this year, it's not happening. So that's just who he is. He's got that. His legacy matters to him more than anything, and I guarantee you,
more than his family.
Literally,
more than his.
He got a divorce over his legacy.
He's gonna find a way to win this one. So if you any kind of sports gambling at all and you want free money, you get plus odds. This is a lock.
You don't divorce a supermodel and Giselle to lose to the Cowboys.
No.
Well, that was good. That was a good segment. I enjoyed that. That was fun. Shout out the GOAT. My GOAT is going to be coming up next, and that's going to be the Daniel Jones-led Giants versus the Minnesota Vikings. Spencer, I'll let you take the floor on this tough matchup.
Yeah. I'm also a certified Giants hater as a Commanders fan. Not quite as much as I hate the Cowboys, but I am, like I did with the Cowboys, clearly going to keep it unbiased. Danny Pennies versus Kirk Cousins, whose name I literally just used as insult to Dak Prescott in the previous segment. This is a really interesting one. I mean, you look at the teams on paper, the Giants, you got to give Brian Daboll a ton of credit. This is not a good team. Isaiah Hodgins is out here being like the leading receiver the last 4 weeks. The fact that they're in the playoffs and got some really quality wins along the way. I mean, obviously they had that stretch where they kind of folded against a lot of good teams, but they did enough. They did what they had to do. They did what the Commanders couldn't, and closed out the season in a way that got them into the playoffs. And I think Brian Daboll should win Coach of the Year. I think they're really set up with him manning that team. Danny Pennies showed me that he is at least okay-ish this year. The previous years of his career, he was absolutely terrible. And this year, he really still doesn't have that much talent around him, and he's done enough. I think that's more credit to Brian Daboll than him. But the offense functions. The defense functions. It's on paper, the Vikings are so much more talented than the Giants. It's actually stupid. But I'm a vibes guy. The Giants weren't supposed to be here. Kirk Cousins doesn't belong here. I watched him for 4 years. We made the playoffs once with him, and he sucked. Every year with him, we were like close to the playoffs. And there were a couple big games we needed at the end of the year. One was against the Giants in week 17. I'll never forget it. It ruined my year. And he folds. He just folds. I know he has a couple playoff wins under his belt with the Vikings, at least one, I think two. But he doesn't have it. I don't know if it's that he's too nice. I don't know what it is, but he just folds in that moment. And the Vikings are fraudulent. I mean, they had the greatest comeback of all time against the Colts. They let the Jeff Saturday Colts put up 33 on them in the first half. They got absolutely stomped by the Cowboys. I think it was like 45-3. Couldn't hang with the Lions. Couldn't hang with the Packers. They've been on a downward turn, even though their record doesn't necessarily show it. And this is a Giants team that's playing with house money. They weren't supposed to be here. All of the pressure is on Kirk Cousins. This is such a talented team, such a talented offense. I think he's going to fold. I like the Giants in this one. I think it's going to be ugly. Kirk probably throws 2 picks, and the Giants win by like 3, maybe 20-17 or something. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think the only way this ends up in a blowout is if the Vikings win. The Giants just don't have the firepower to roll the Vikings. But I think it'll be ugly. I think it'll be kind of a gross game to watch, but in a fun way. And I think the Giants are going to squeak it out just because Kirk Cousins ain't him, and I think Brian Daboll might be him.
I'm shocked that you don't like Mr. You like that.
I hate him.
All right, Michael, take it away.
Yeah. So I look at this matchup, and similar to the Jaguars and Charger game, this one took me a while to really just think about it. I feel like this is going to be a really close one. It is important to note that both of these defenses are pretty awful. They both been, I think, bottom 5, bottom 7 in both like defensive and pass like DVOA this whole season defensively. So I don't think, if you want to bet over unders, go the over on this one. I feel like when I look at these teams and I'm trying to make the decision of who I think will win, listen, I've been watching the Giants a lot this year. I picked them to make the playoffs before the season. I think Saquon's been resurgent. Like I love Saquon. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL, and just watching him play has been so fun. And I think that the key here really is Brian Daboll. I just believe in him as a coach. I think he should get coach of the year. I know there's a lot of other good options out there, but he's so fantastic at play calling. He turns a bunch of, they're receivers. Let's be honest. Did anyone know any of them before this season? I mean, Darius Slayton, yes. Like, have you heard of Hodgins or Richie James or whoever else they're throwing out there? And some Fells guy. Even
Galladay caught a touchdown last week.
Galladay caught a touch. Kenny Galladay.
That was big. That was big. He's getting hot. He's getting hot.
Yeah, I just feel like the X factor here, and this is kind of like a stupid thing to say, because a lot of time you look at an X factor, it can't be the quarterback. Like, that's too obvious. But Kirk Cousins really is the X factor. Is he gonna turn the primetime Kirk where he just sucks, or is he gonna play like he does when it's a 10 a.m. game that nobody's watching? He throws 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Justin Jefferson has 200 yards on the day. Like, that's gonna be the X factor, is how Kirk Cousins plays. If he plays like good, and let alone great, if he plays good, I just think they have too much talent to win. Okay, I think they're just too talented at receiver. I think they're too talented at running back. I think Kevin O'Connell is a good coach as well, and I feel like they've just done. They're not a 3 seed for no reason, right? I think there's something to say about teams that find a way to win one possession games over and over and over again. To me, that signals that you have a knack for finishing, and that really does matter in a sport like the NFL, that most of the games come down to the wire, right? So that part of me is like, okay, Vikings, but I just feel like the Giants, similar to what Spencer was saying, have nothing to lose. I feel like they're going to come out here similar to how the Lions played on Sunday Night Football this past weekend against the Packers, just pulling out tricks out of their ass and just really just putting the pressure on Kirk. And I think he'll fold similarly. So I'm picking the Giants here. I think it's going to be a close one. This is a tough pick to make, but I just like what they're doing. I've liked what they've been doing all year. And I just think this is going to be a shootout where I think the Giants are able to win at the end, probably due to a Kirk Cousins pick.
Yeah, so as a Giants fan myself, I love to see, because I got the dogs barking a wild card weekend. I think the Giants right now, like you guys have been saying, I'm so in agreement to both of your guys' takes. They're playing on house money. As a Giants fan, watching every week, just seeing that Daniel Jones, who is proven to be, he's worth starting in the NFL. Like, I don't know, back when he got picked, obviously being a reach, like him playing every single season has been he hasn't shown being worthy of a number 6 overall pick. But this season, to see what he's done with this team around him in terms of options is insane. Besides their tight end in Daniel Bellinger, what receiver has talent? Like, I don't want to shit on Darius Slayton, because Slayton is good, but you got Richie James, you got Isaiah Hodgins, you got all these nobodies. And you look at the box score, and there's like 10 different people with a reception in the game. But that all comes down to Brian Daboll's play calling. You got Saquon coming out being a baller, a top 5 running back in the league again. And he has slowed down. His first half was like insane. And then his second half, he's kind of slowed down. People have kind of gotten the rule book and what the Giants are running. But when I look at this matchup, the Giants just played the Vikings a month ago, and they only lost by a field goal, a 61-yarder by Greg Joseph in an indoor field.
And there were some bad plays in that game by the Giants too, right? Wasn't there a punt block? And
they played pretty poorly, and they led the comeback, and then they ended up losing to a 60-yard field goal. I think what's something to be noted is Daniel Jones in the fourth quarter is kind of him. Like, he has led this Giants team to so many comeback victories from behind. I think if you look at the league rankings, like, he's like one of the top 5 in comebacks for this season. Daniel Jones being clutch is not two things I would have said in the start of the season. And I just think what Brian Dable is doing is just giving this team swagger, giving this team heart. And they're kind of giving me those Giant vibes back in the day when they won those Super Bowls. Like they didn't deserve to be there. They're here with hard work and effort. And who knows, maybe a helmet catch will come along the way and they'll just skate by. I think their route to the Super Bowl is a lot harder. But against this Minnesota Vikings team, which you guys have pointed out, on paper is stacked. You got the best wide receiver in football, hands down. You got Justin Jefferson. You got Dalvin Cook, who's a dog. We didn't even mention TJ Hawkinson, absolute dog at tight end. Like they have the weapons, they have the offense. Kevin O'Connell is a great offensive mind. And I think what he's done this season has proven like he can get these. KJ Osborne just had 120 yards last week. Like they have options. I just look at Minnesota, and the one thing that sticks out to me, the Lions were not even 500, and the Vikings were as good as they were, and the Vikings were underdogs, and they lost to the Lions. Like to me, that just proves so much fraudulency. Like that, like I thought Vegas was insane, but Vegas knows what they're doing. They lost to the Lions. They got destroyed by the Cowboys, and we did a whole rant about why the Cowboys fucking suck. They lost to the Eagles, and they're
killed
just
by
like
the Packers.
Yeah, and they got killed by the Packers. Like all their losses have been like head scratchers. And obviously their wins are all very close wins. I think if you look at it, though, someone else also did a stat that if you flipped their record around for every one possession win that they have, they'd be like 3-13. Literally, like it's insane. So I know, Brady, you were saying that they kind of deserve some credit for winning these tight games. But on the flip side, it's like one mistake in a playoff game with a tight game on the line, your season's over. Yeah. And I was going to kind of go along with the agreement that Brian Dable, in my opinion, is the coach of the year. I think with the Giants defense being good enough to compete with a solid run game, and Vanilla Vic's got some legs. Danny Dimes can really run the ball. Yeah. He can make some plays happen. I don't know if it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be very similar to how they played a month ago, like 23-20, 17-20, maybe 28-24, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to come down to the coaching and the play calling towards the end of the game. And a little insight, I was at the Ranger game on Tuesday. Landon Collins was there. He walked out the arena, and everyone's like, Landon, fuck the Vikings. You're going to win, right? He's like, I swear on me, we're winning. So if Landon Collins is a man of his word, the Giants are going to beat the Vikings, and that's my pick.
Hey, well, if Landon Collins was a man of his word, he was going to be the next Sean Taylor for the Commanders.
That is true.
No, I actually like Landon Collins, but I think it's funny that I'm glad you brought up Kevin O'Connell because I think he also is a very good coach. Like we've been talking so much about Brian Daboll just because what he's done has been so impressive with a bad quarterback, bad receivers, really bad team. Like I think it's just funny that all of us are convinced the Giants are going to win this game when the Vikings, like you said, have Justin Jefferson, have Dalvin Cook, have TJ Hawkinson, have Adam Thielen, have 12 wins on the season. And you, Rizzo, just pointed out, you circled out Daniel Bellinger as like maybe the most talented guy in that receiving core. If we're doing that for Daniel Bellinger, what are we even talking about here? But it's for me, it's just that it's vibes. The Giants have good vibes. The Vikings have bad vibes. And Kirk Prescott, man, he folds.
Yeah, just one more thing I wanted to say is I feel like it hasn't been touched on yet, but to play in Minnesota in a playoff game is tough. Like that is one of the best home crowds you're going to have. And we don't know what Daniel Jones is going to do in a situation like that. Hopefully run the ball a lot. Like Rizzo is saying, he's mobile. If I was Dable, I'd be running as much as possible, especially early in the game, get him in rhythm, and then start trying to make some easy passes. But I don't know. Yeah, like Spencer was saying, this is definitely the game that I feel the least confident about in my pick. I feel like it could truly go either way. I feel like like I said, it comes down to Kirk Cousins, but I think there's something to say for the home field here, not in all these other games necessarily, but in this game, I really think it's going to be a huge factor. So this would be a really good one though. And yeah, I think it'll be maybe high 20s for each team, maybe low 30s. That's kind of what I'm going with.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. This being a Giant homer, they've given me life, something to root for. So I hope they get the W here and reign supreme out of the NFC East. So we're going to go over to a matchup I'm excited to hear about coming from Michael's standpoint. We're going to go with the 49ers and the Seahawks. Michael, I think it's your floor to run as the Seahawks fan of the pod. So take it away.
Yeah. I'm a Seahawks fan for sure. Big time Seahawks fan. I got what, 3 jerseys just on the wall right there. Yeah. So love the Seahawks, guys. I've been watching the Seahawks Niners rivalry for a long time. And I want to come on this podcast and like be unbiased, right? Like I'm gonna be as unbiased as I possibly can. Obviously, I have my thoughts on things, but then this Niners team, as much as I love the Seahawks, they are more talented. They are more talented up front, significantly on the D line. I mean, the Seahawks don't really have a D line. That is probably their biggest weakness right now, especially in the run game. They cannot stop the run. And I was at the game when San Fran played in Seattle a few weeks ago, and it was just literally run, 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 run. Couldn't stop shit, and then we couldn't score on them. All right, that's all that happened. So when I'm thinking about this game, I'm like, all right, well, how can the Seahawks win this game? So I did a deep dive. Listen to this. Here's some stats for you. In the last 20 games against Seahawks and Niners, the Seattle Seahawks are 15-5 against the Niners. And that includes being 0-2 in this season. So coming into the season, they were 15-3 in their last 18. And that's a team, the Niners team, that has been better than the Seahawks in several of those years, especially last year. I mean, so that's number one. Do you think a team that's won 15-3 against the other team is going to go 0-3 in one season? That's okay. That's one thing I'd like to point out. Number two, Pete Carroll against Kyle Shanahan, 9-4. Again, coming into this year, 9-2, now 9-4. Do you think he's going to lose to a team and a coach 3 times that he's owned throughout his entire career and their tenure against each other in the rivalry? And number 3, most importantly, the Seattle Seahawks team right now, they just don't give a fuck. Like they are so loose in that building. Pete Carroll is the greatest motivator. Everybody, you guys know, I know that the Niners are a more talented team, a better team than Seattle Seahawks. That's just a fact. But I don't think it's going to matter because I honestly believe the pressure's all on the Niners. They got a rookie quarterback who's going to struggle. I know he's on 10-0. Okay, I could go probably play out there and be 10-0 for this team. It's going to be a bad weather game, all right? There's going to be high winds, high rain. I think that while that does benefit a run team like the Niners, I'd also like to point out the Seahawks' biggest strength is the run game. That is where they get their offense going. That's always been where their offense goes. They start with the run, go to the play action, they hit Lockett and DK deep, all right? The Seattle team has the mojo. I'm telling you, this line is ridiculous. San Francisco minus 10.5 is so ridiculous. Okay, if you don't think Seattle's going to win, fine. Do not bet on the Niners in any fashion because you're throwing away your money. Let's say you do money line. Cool. You're going to bet $500 to win 100. That's stupid. You want to do the spread? You're going to lose your money. All right. So here's what I'm saying to all you guys out here who think I'm crazy. The Seattle Seahawks team is not going to go 0-3 to the Niners. I've watched this rivalry my entire life. It doesn't make sense. The NFC West doesn't make sense when they play each other in these kind of games. The underdog wins so much. The game's so much closer than you think. This is going to be a grudge match. I'd recommend the under. Like these kind of games are just shit shows. And it's been so many times where I've seen the opposite end of it, where the Seahawks are much better than the Niners, and the Niners screw them over just through some bullshit. And it's going to be the exact same way this time. Seahawks is my pick. Trust me. Ride with me. It's going to be a fun experience. I know that this is supposed to be the blowout. It's not going to be a blowout. The Seahawks team is going to fight. They believe in themselves. They're motivated, and Pete Carroll has them ready to go.
I'll run through a wall for you, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something, Spencer. My
bad.
I
was just following. I can go.
Yeah, no, you could go ahead. I think you were taking the lead, so go ahead.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean that's a beautiful speech. I'm gonna just bury the lead here. I'm picking the Niners. But I do agree with you. I know the weather's going to suck. I think that line isn't maybe as much of a donation as you seem to think it is. But I think the Seahawks are going to keep it tight just because, like you said, it is a rivalry game. It is bad weather. And I think it's funny that you brought up how the run game has been so important for them this year, and Ken Walker has been awesome. And I feel like a lot of people clowned them when they took him. They're like, oh, they have Rashad Penny, who gets hurt every 3 games, and Chris Carson, who retired. So it was a good pick, but I think the Niners you called them a more talented team than the Seahawks. I think they're legitimately one of the most stacked teams on offense and defense I've ever seen. Look at that roster is ridiculous. It's the best defense in the NFL. They have a top 3 running back in the NFL. They have an elite wide receiver. They have another good complementary receiver. They unfortunately have Ray McLeod in the slot. That'll have to be fixed in the offseason. But they have a great tight end as well. O-line is shaky-ish, but they have the best left tackle in football. So, like you said with Brock Purdy, I don't think he's anything special. I think we'll find out 5 years from now that he was a pretty good backup in the league. I'm not going to take anything away from him. He's obviously played well for a 7th-round pick, but hey, I'm probably winning a couple games behind that team as well at quarterback. So I think the Seahawks are an awesome story. They're also like the Giants playing with house money. They weren't supposed to be here. Geno Smith is like my favorite story of this entire season. Is he going to get paid in the offseason? What the hell do you even give to Geno Smith anyway? That's a tangent for another time. But the Niners are just too good. I just can't see the Seahawks being able to stop Christian McCaffrey in this game. And I think it will be closer than a lot of people expect. I don't have this as my biggest blowout of the weekend, but I do have to take the Niners. And I do think if they find a way to get themselves even like a Derek Carr, even if Brady decides he wants to play there, I mean, they might win every single game. Look what they're undefeated with Brock Purdy. It is the most ridiculous roster ever assembled. Great coaching. Get them a quarterback, please. Well, actually, no, I don't even like the Niners. Don't get them a quarterback.
Yeah,
Leave
please don't.
Yeah.
I will have to say, if I just was listening to the podcast, didn't have any picks, and Michael, you came out with what you came out, I would have been all in. That shit was motivational. I'm not gonna lie. I hope you give that speech to the Seahawks heading into their matchup against the 49ers, because I'm on the boat with Spencer. I think the 49ers are honestly kind of gonna trample them. I think the stats that you brought up is good to know. But looking at the 49ers team this season, they've given up 4 20-point games. Only 4 people has scored 20 on them. And they've played 17 games. That's nuts in itself. Spencer was talking about the roster up and down. Such a stacked team. And they're not even playing with Deebo Samuel right now. You got Brock Purdy under center. You can name the worst court. You could put Huntley out there and have them be undefeated. Like Brock Purdy, sure, he's doing great, but I don't think Brock Purdy is going to choke under pressure because ultimately he really doesn't have to do much. You got Christian McCaffrey. This might be a hot take because I know you're a Seahawks fan. You see him a lot more. I genuinely think if they just ran the Wildcat with Christian McCaffrey in the back, that they can still win this game just through defense alone. I think when you look at their defense, you got Bosa, Greenlaw, Fred Warner, like the list, like it's insane to think that they have this assembled. Then you got McCaffrey, you got Ayuk, you got Kittle, you got Deebo, who hasn't even been playing in the last few weeks. Like this team, top to bottom, is insane. And given they have Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, behind center, I do agree with you on one point. And I think this game is going to go under because Brock doesn't really have I don't want to say he doesn't have that dog in him because he's obviously never lost in the NFL yet. And he's beaten people like Tom Brady. Like he's beaten some solid people. I just don't think the Niners are going to ask for him to score that much. And I could see the Seahawks covering 10.5 because 10.5, regardless in the NFL, is a lot of points. Like the Seahawks are still a playoff team. Did they deserve it over the Lions or any other teams? That's debatable. But how
they beat the Lions in the regular season, so.
But the Lions, listen, man, the Lions come next
season.
I
love the Lions. Don't get me wrong.
I think the Lions deserve to be more than the Seahawks and the Giants.
Yeah, like I think just kind of how the cookie crumbled. The Lions turned around a little too late. They started the season 1-5, so it is their own fault they didn't make it. But they were the hottest team in football. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, Geno Smith has been a great story. When you got all these people coming at him, Kenny Walker's him. Like I've had him in my fantasy team this year. He was the only reason why I won 3 games in one of my leagues. But I just don't know with Kyle Shanahan coaching up this team, literally just dumping it off, just giving it to the people at the right spots. Brandon Ayuk has been solid. George Kittle has finally been turning it around because he had a slow start to the season. And then you add Christian McCaffrey. Also to note, they just got Elijah Mitchell back. Like their back line, it's insane. Like you got McCaffrey, Mitchell as your second option. And if Deebo comes back for this game, which I think people are saying that he might, I think this team has very high Super Bowl aspirations. And you'll see as this goes on, I'm very high on the Niners just because defense wins championships. And this Niners defense is kind of giving me championship vibes. So for me, I think the Niners win in a low scoring game. I could see Seattle covering. I'm going to go 21-10. That's my prediction.
One thing I want to point out is neither of these teams are going to be able to pass the ball. All right. So now you're looking at a game where it's going to be very run heavy. All right. And one other thing to mention, the Seahawks are very strong in the secondary. Very strong in the secondary. That is their one strong point of the defense. So the Niners know this. They're going to be running. I went to the game. They're going to run. Seahawks are going to run. They don't want to be thrown with Geno too much, taking hits and stuff. Listen, this game is going to come down to the fourth quarter. It's going to be one of those games where people are like, how the hell are the Seahawks still in this game? It's going to be like 13-6 or some weird score. And I'm telling you guys, on Saturday, when this game ends and I text you guys and say, I told you so, I told you so. The Seahawks are winning this game. It doesn't always make sense, you guys. It doesn't make sense. It's a vibes thing. And I'll tell you what, Pete Carroll is a better coach than Kyle Shanahan. It's not all about calling X's and O's offensively. It's about motivating a team. It's about building culture. That's why he's owned them, and he will continue to own them. And they're going to ruin the Niners season. They have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. It's clear as day. The Niners, Brock Purdy, bright lights. Maybe he gets hit a little bit early. Maybe he throws a pick or two. I'm telling you, Hawks are winning this game. Mark it down. Let's go.
All right. I'll say this too. We were talking about how stacked the Niners defense is, and then we're listing names like Dre Greenlaw and, Hufanga has been amazing as a rookie. Who are these guys really? I think DeMeco Ryans is an incredible defensive coach. If he is not a head coach next season, there's something wrong with the NFL. That's just another tangent for another time. But.
Yep.
And no, I agree with both of those. Listen, we got a lot of dogs barking. That's exciting to see. That means it's going to be good football. And that's going to round up the first round. I think it's going to be an interesting one. So to go over back to the AFC for the second round, we're going to go with the number 1 seed in the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Chargers / the Jags, since we had different opinions. I'll kind of go first, just being the only Jags supporter in that first round. So here we go. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars and my pick having that great underdog story with their hot start towards the end of the season, beating a pretty stacked Chargers team versus the Chiefs. And it comes down to just not only coaching, but just potential and quarterback stardom. Patrick Mahomes, I think without a shadow of a doubt, might be the best player in this generation of football. I know he's had a lot of high praise. He's probably going to lock the MVP just because Jalen Hurts got injured a little bit towards the last few games of the season. I think a lot of people coming into this season with Tyreek Hill leaving, everyone's like, oh, finally, the Chiefs are done. Let's go. And then you got Patrick Mahomes making McCole Hardman, all these other guys look like studs. Obviously, you got Kelsey. But then now you got this rookie running back in Isaiah Pacheco coming out, being good. You got Jerick McKinnon being the new Christian McCaffrey of football. I just think with Andy Reid as the head coach, with Patrick Mahomes being the best quarterback in football, I just don't see how the Jaguars can compete because the Jaguars really don't have a lockdown defense. Neither do the Chiefs, but the Chiefs defense has definitely turned it around since Patrick Mahomes first got there. And I think they're reliable enough to win, especially against the Jaguars. Even if they play the Chargers, I wait for your guys' picks. I think it'd be a pretty walk in the park for the Chiefs, especially being at home. Arrowhead obviously is insane. The fans there are insane. Just people in Kansas City love Chiefs football. And I think Patrick Mahomes not making it to the AFC Championship is almost as shocking as the Seahawks beating the 49ers. Sorry, Michael. But yeah, that's kind of my take. Pretty easy there. So
yeah, this one's easy for me too. I have the Chargers versus the Chiefs. And if you actually look at these rosters on paper, they stack up pretty evenly. And the Chargers play the Chiefs close with Justin Herbert. They do. I feel like it's always Kelsey scoring a walk-off touchdown when those two teams play. I don't think it'll be that close this time. I just think, again, we've talked about how Brandon Staley is not the best coach. To his credit, he's a defensive mastermind, but in terms of the X's and O's of being a head coach, not good. Andy Reid is one of the greatest head coaches of all time. Him and Patrick Mahomes, I think for a coach and a quarterback, putting together an offense are the best duo ever in the history of the NFL. And Patrick Mahomes is ridiculous. It's just that simple. Like you said, Rizzo, Tyreek Hill left, and not me, but there were people saying the Chiefs might not even make it out of the AFC West. They might not even make the playoffs. People like the Raiders more than that. People like the Broncos more than it's crazy. And all Mahomes does is come out without an incredible wide receiver in Tyreek Hill and throw for the most yards he's ever thrown for. Like you said, probably win the MVP. He's ridiculous. He's LeBron James. There was that run where I think LeBron made 7 straight finals. It's a little bit different, but like you said with the AFC Conference Championship game, like if he's not there, it's just weird. Chargers can't hang with them. I'm taking Mahomes 100 times out of 100 in this scenario. He's just that guy. The Chiefs they have it. The defense hasn't been great, but it's been better than years past. Like you said, Pacheco is way better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who the fact that he was a first-round pick in the NFL is shocking. And yeah, Jerick McKinnon ended my fantasy football season by dropping like 35 on my head when I was the 1 seed. So he's apparently good now, which is cool. But yeah, I got the Chiefs. I don't 30-17 just because it's a rivalry game. I don't know, but Chiefs roll them. It's not even a question for me.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely much more optimistic about the Chargers' chances in this game. I feel like kind of what you were saying earlier, Spencer. I feel like the Chargers have kept close games against the Chiefs in the past. I think they pulled out a win, right, last year or the year before.
I believe so.
Really good. It was like one of the best games of the year. Listen, do I love the Chargers? No, but like the way I look at it, like division games can get weird. First of all. Second of all, I do think that the Chargers have a better pass defense than the Chiefs. The Chiefs definitely have a better run defense, but the Chargers are going to be able to kind of stop their receivers better than people I think would expect, especially when you look at the talent for Mahomes at the receiver position. It's really lackluster, honestly. They has Kelsey. Kelsey's a beast. But outside of that, I mean, he does a lot of passes at the running back. He does a lot of scrambling. At the end of the day, it is Patrick Mahomes. He is the best player in football. He's the MVP. And it's really, really hard to pick against him. So I'm not going to do it. So I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. But I do think that if this line comes out too heavy and it's Chiefs minus like 7 or 8, I'm going to be bet on the Chargers because I just feel like they're clicking at the right time. And I feel like their defense is better than what people are going to expect because it's been so bad most of the season. And I just feel like offensively, they have better weapons, maybe not better weapons because of Kelsey, obviously, but like their weapons are very close to the Chiefs and quarterback plays, obviously not completely there, but Herbert's not a slouch. And then you just look at the defense, and I do think that the Chargers might actually have a better defense than the Chiefs. So I think that would be a pretty good game when you throw in the division part of it, but I'll go Chiefs here.
And just to kind of point out to you, I think on paper I don't even know if it's an argument. I think the Chargers have a better roster than the Chiefs. I mean, you look at the skilled positions. Eckler's better than McKinnon, and even though McKinnon's been insane, he scored like a touchdown in 6 straight games.
Ridiculous.
And Pacheco, Keenan is better than any wide receiver that Kansas City has. The only skill position that Kansas City obviously has over the Chargers is Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey. But like you said, Michael, Herbert's really not that far. I mean, like there is obviously levels to it, but he's not Skylar Thompson compared to
it's not
Allen.
like it's Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott. This is a guy who's like a top 5 quarterback in the league. So he's not going to go out there and just get punked. And the Chiefs have a pretty bad defense. So I just feel like it would be a really good game. You don't want to bet against Mahomes in a game like that, so I'm not going to be the one that does it, but I wouldn't be the most shocked person in the world if the Chargers pulled something out of their hat there.
Yeah, so pretty simple prediction there. We had the Chiefs making the AFC Championship. Shocker. I think if this ends up happening, it might be the game of the entire playoffs. We got the Buffalo Bills versus the Cincinnati Bengals, which
DeMar Hamlin Bowl.
Yep, it is. It's kind of going to be the rerun of what happened last week, obviously besides the incident. Michael, I kind of let you take the reins. I want to hear what you have to say on this, in my opinion, pretty close game.
Yeah, this would be a great game for sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. The only game that's going to be at a neutral site would be AFC Championship, right? So this would be in Buffalo, correct?
I think I think it was the AFC Championship will be neutral.
Okay. Yeah, so here's the thing. Like I think that this would be a really good game. Like I said earlier, I think the Bengals are really stacked and I think the Bills are really stacked. These are actually the 2 teams I consider the best in the AFC personally. So watching the matchup here, this would be a tough game to call, but when I think about just the trajectory of both of these seasons coming in from last season too, the Bengals just made the Super Bowl. Like it is hard to then make it again. All right. The Bills, you know what happened with them. They were heartbroken because they played just as good as the Chiefs in that game. They went play for play with them the whole time. Josh Allen was a stud. Came down to the last seconds. We know what happened. You combine that with just the emotional bond that they're all obviously going through right now, and then being at home in a stadium that would be rocking like absolutely crazy. I cannot find a way that I could bet against the Bills in a game at home. I just don't think. I just think that this entire season they've been the best team. I know they had a few weeks there where they stumbled, but every team usually does. And I just feel like they are so strong all across the board. Maybe not defensively, but their offense is so good. I have so much faith in Josh Allen. I love their coach. I love the way that they play. And I just feel like this is their season to actually like try to make a Super Bowl. And I just feel like the Bengals, they just did it. I feel like they've had more of a rocky season. Not that they haven't been really good as well. They've been red hot recently, but I just feel like when I look at their teams, the talent's pretty close. But I just have a feeling that the better team is the Buffalo Bills. So I'm picking the Bills here. And I think it would be a fantastic game, very close. But I just that home field, that is something else. That will be something else. That's some kind of advantage that really pushes the team over the edge. So going Buffalo.
Go ahead, Rizzo.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So this is what I gave this game a little high praise before, Michael. You kind of went on your stint. There's so much to this game that's past football that is going to be on the line. I genuinely like, if possible, if people can literally put planes in Buffalo above the stadium to watch, like I think Buffalo would do it. I think there's going to be 50,000 people just in the parking lot alone, just listening to the stadium live in hopes that they're like in that atmosphere. Buffalo at home with everything that they have going for them. Like you said, just them losing in a heartbreak loss to the Chiefs last season. Like I don't want to say like sports is not scripted. Like sports isn't fake, but what happened last week, the return touchdown scoring for DeMar Hamlin, like it's insane like that this isn't like scripted. Like it almost makes too much sense for the Buffalo Bills to go on this magical run, get to the Super Bowl, end up winning the Super Bowl, and just having this great story. But in my predictions, that's not what happens. I think Joe Burrow comes out there once again, proves to the haters, to the doubters, that he is this generation's Tom Brady. Do I think he's going to win 7 Super Bowls? Absolutely not. But I think he has something that a lot of these quarterbacks, besides Patrick Mahomes, has, and that's the ability to not fold under pressure. I'm not saying that Josh Allen folds under pressure because he's obviously a top 3 quarterback in this league, but I think Joe Burrow is honestly number 2. That might be a little bit biased, but I just think obviously he has weapons. Obviously he's got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. Like he's got a stacked offense. But I think when it comes down to it, I think Joe Burrow has that playoff experience. He is known as an underdog. Look at his run last season. Look at his run even this season. He's beaten the Chiefs. Ultimately, he comes in these big situations and these big moments in these big games and comes through. Even back in college. I know college is a different animal, but that LSU run that he had, end up winning the chip, just dominant. Joe Burrow has this thing about him where he is going to come out with his swagger, with his ability to throw, make big throws, come in clutch, and end up winning. And I know Buffalo is going to be insane. Like insane isn't even the right word. That city is going to be ballistic. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, Devin Singletary. Like you have so many people on the Bills. Their defense with, I believe, Micah Hyde is going to come back in time. I'm not too sure, but he should be. That's what people were predicting. If the Bills are healthy, like the storybook writing is there for the Bills to win, but a lot of vibes have been talking about during this podcast. And I just think Joe Burrow is going to do something that only really Tom Brady's done, and that's go back to another AFC championship. I think he's going to cement himself as a legacy game. I think this is a big game for Joe Burrow. All these press conferences are saying, like, when is your window going to close? When is your window going to open? And he has this hard line, like, my window is my whole career. I just think he's calm, cool, collected. He's ready for the moment. And regardless with what's at stake, I just think Joe Burrow with Zach Taylor, with all these guys. And this Bengals team's chemistry, obviously, granted, the Bills had such a bonding moment. I just think they're one of the most well-rounded like teams when it comes to chemistry. And I think that's important in football. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow obviously have that connection, which is why I kind of had the Jags beating the Chargers with Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. I think when the big games matter and they need to go to someone, I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are the duo I would take over Diggs and Allen. That could be a hot take, but that's my take. And I do have the Bengals winning. I think the line is probably going to be like 1.5
One.
for
Yeah.
1.5 in favor of the Bills. But I got the Bengals winning 34-31. That's my prediction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this game is going to be awesome. I mean, I got to say shout out to Tua and Lamar for getting injured so that I don't have to sweat out whether or not we're going to get this matchup. I'm super, super excited for it. But like Rizzo said, the NFL isn't scripted. The Bengals are red hot right now. The Bills secondary I know is banged up. I do agree with you, Rizzo. I think Joe Burrow is 2, Josh Allen is 3. But with this matchup being what it is, with what happened with DeMar Hamlin, and obviously it was to no fault of the Bengals, and I think these teams actually have a lot of respect for each other after everything that went down. I'm sure the coaches have a ton of respect for each other. Even the fan bases have a ton of respect for each other. For that stadium to be as rocking as it's going to be, for those Bills players being as emotional as they're going to be, even though I know everyone here is an NFL player, they don't fold under any circumstances. They don't let shit phase them. If you're the Bengals, you have to feel that, and you have to feel like you're fighting against more than just a team. Like, I feel like you would feel like the walls are closing in on you walking in that stadium. DeMar Hamlin's been making strides. Maybe there's a chance he could even be, obviously not suited up, but he could be there at the game. There's a chance for that. Like, it's going to be such a powerful thing. It's going to be so fun to watch, even outside of football, just like with everything that went down, it almost transcends it. And I think the Bengals, I know the NFL isn't scripted, but I feel it in my heart that the Bills win this game. I think the Bengals are the better team. I think Joe Burrow is the better quarterback, but I think the Bills are just playing for so much, and that stadium is going to be fucking rocking. I liked Michael's point about the Bengals just made the Super Bowl. The Bills feel like they had it ripped out from under them at the last second last season. They're going to be playing with so much passion and so much heart that I think it's going to be an incredible game, shootout, and I have the Bills winning it. I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of reception Joe Mixon gets. That little coin flip touchdown celebration was kind of weird, but he also punches women, so he's probably not the best representation of the Bengals as an organization. But I don't know. It's going to be an awesome game, and I think the Bills pull it out. I think the Bengals are the better team. If that DeMar Hamlin situation didn't happen, I think I would probably take the Bengals in this game, but it did happen. That means something to these guys. It's going to have a tangible effect on this game, I think, and I think the Bills are going to pull it out.
Yeah. And Rizzo, just when you were talking, I did agree with a couple of things you were saying. I agree that Joe Burrow has a track record of winning in big games in the playoffs, something that Josh Allen honestly has not done. Like, he's maybe won 1 or 2 games. They've been a favorite in a lot of playoff games that he's lost, or a lot of big games that he's lost. And I also agree with another thing you said, or maybe you didn't say, but I think the Buffalo Bills defense is not as good as anticipated. I mean, maybe they have guys coming back from injury, but their defense is not as good as the Bengals. And I feel pretty confident about that. However, what I also feel pretty confident about is not only the home crowd, but I feel like the coaching is a significant advantage for the Buffalo Bills. I think Zach Taylor is a fine coach. I don't have any problem with him. He just made a Super Bowl with a team that should not have been in the Super Bowl, right? But I think Sean McDermott has established himself as one of the best coaches in the NFL. I think he's going to have these guys absolutely fired up. I just feel like they're more hungry. I don't know how else to put it than they're more hungry. And I don't believe that the Bengals as a whole team have been better than the Bills as a whole team. Maybe they're equal. Maybe slight edge. I probably feel slight edge Bills. If they're equal, I could totally understand that. I think this Bengals team is awesome. But I just feel like all the factors going on outside of the game, even in the game, the home crowd, I feel like Josh Allen really knows he has something to prove here. And I just feel like their bond, some things are just meant to be. And I feel like their bond is so much stronger as a team from what happened. And I just feel like that they are going to find a way to win this game.
And just before we move on to our next point, I think that was the biggest gripe I had. It feels almost too good to be true. Like, it would be magnificent if it does happen. Buffalo 100% deserves it. And we look back, and this is something we tell our kids as kids, like, this happened and the Bills just went on a historic run. I think when it comes down to it, in the big moments, like you said, if this game is a shootout, like how I think I think you guys as well are predicting, I just rather go with someone that I can trust during these big shootout games, and that's Joe Burrow and this Bengals offense. Not that the Bills are any slouch. I think I'm going to make the hot take here, and I just think that the Bengals are a little bit more composed. I feel like the Bills could feel like they have so much to play for and just fold under pressure, which I think is kind of devil's advocate there.
That's possible.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I was going to say they might be beating themselves up if they end up losing, which ends up having them stumble this game. But I will say, I do think, not to get too much into the AFC Championship, but I think whoever comes out of this game more than likely probably comes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I do real quick want to just touch on what you just said about them having almost too much emotion. That is very possible. Like, it's an emotional game. You're hitting guys the entire game. You're getting pissed off, and they have so much on their shoulders. Like, one of the things that with Taylor Heineke, the jersey I'm wearing right now, he plays with so much heart. He puts so much pressure on himself, and sometimes he just makes a throw where you're like, what are you doing? And he just believes in that moment that he can do it for the team, for everything, and he can't. And there is a possibility that the Bills build themselves up so much, like, we have to win this game. This is for more than football, that it actually becomes detrimental. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's very much a possibility. So I think that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think that's an important one, just because both sides to it. They can play out of their minds or they can fumble the line. But more than less, an exciting second round for the AFC. We're going to go over to the NFC, which we kind of have a little different takes. We're going to go with the number 1 seed, Philadelphia Eagles, versus either the Giants that me and Spencer kind of have, or the Seahawks. Granted that Michael had the Seahawks beating the Niners. If that's the case, then they would travel to Philadelphia. So just being the sole representative of the Seahawks, Michael, I'm going to let you talk about if the Seahawks have that magic to beat the number 1 seed in football.
The Seahawks team has the magic to beat the San Francisco 49ers in a close divisional rivalry game. Do I think they have the magic to go into Philly and beat a team that is pretty strong all across the board? I mean, look at Philadelphia. They have they have the weapons. I've been super impressed with Jalen Hurts. Will he do it in the playoffs? That's something that has to be seen still. He has not proven that, but neither is Geno Smith, obviously. So I feel like that's my one hesitancy about the Eagles in the whole playoff scheme of things. But I'm not going to sit here. And like I said, I'm trying to give honest feedback to the fans. The Seahawks team is not like maybe above average, but they're not super talented. All right. They're not going to go on some run. I hope they go on a run and win the Super Bowl. I'll be rooting for it the whole time. I don't want to lead the fans of this podcast astray and give them bad advice. The Eagles will take care of the Seahawks if this game comes the way I will believe that it will. I think the Eagles are just really strong across the board. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I would be giving my advice unbiased as the Eagles, but in my heart, Seahawks, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I think that was pretty cut and dry. The Seahawks magic probably does die
it's a
before
one
this
game. I'm telling you, you guys, the Niners are going to lose to the Seahawks. All right, it's going to happen. But the Eagles, that's a whole nother story.
I'll be here just waiting to see it. So for me and Spencer, the matchup that we have is the Eagles versus Giants, which is in itself, I think, another big game. And kind of not even to put my Giants bias into it, I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to struggle here just based on one thing and one thing alone. I think that Jalen Hurts is going to have to prove something. Obviously, he's having an MVP season. The Eagles are stacked. You got A.J. Brown, which is probably the biggest acquisition besides Christian McCaffrey from the entire offseason and this season. A.J. Brown has had a stellar season. He's had, honestly, such a big impact on this Philadelphia Eagles offense. Obviously, you have Jalen Hurts, who's playing at an MVP level. You got Devontae Smith. You have a whole bunch of solid running backs and Miles Sanders, Boston Scott. Like, it goes on and on. And the fact that I named Boston Scott is funny, but he's a giant killer. So you can lock him in for scoring a touchdown in this game if this happens. But I just think that Daniel Jones, Brian Dable, coming off a big win against the Vikings, is going to go into Philly, which they just went into and played pretty well. They rested all their guys, but Davis Webb looked okay. And like the Eagles were playing to solidify their number 1 seed, right? Because if they ended up losing and the Cowboys ended up winning, then it would have been a different story. But I think the Giants' struggle here is the lack of offensive weapons. I don't think Saquon on his own is going to beat this team. Is it possible? Sure. Brian Dable can cook up a great play. Saquon runs it down the line, 80 yards, touchdown. Oh my God, momentum switched. But realistically, in Philly, that crowd's going to be rocking. And I'm actually very, very happy that if this ends up happening, Philly's a 2-hour drive from New York. The Giants fans will show out in Philly. So I don't know if the home field advantage is going to be as strong as maybe a Buffalo Bills team or a Kansas City Chiefs team. Like, the Giants are going to travel well. So I think it's going to be a pretty even when it comes to home field advantage. But when I look at this game, I'm going to look at quarterback play. I'm going to look at Daniel Jones, and I'm going to look at Jalen Hurts. And I'm going to look at who they have to throw to. Jalen Hurts can run the ball, and he can throw a deep ball to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Daniel Jones can run the ball, and he's going to throw a deep ball to Richie James or Isaiah Hodgins. What are you going to pick, right? Like, I think 8 times out of 10, I'm going to pick A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. That's crazy to think that I'm not picking it 100% of the time, but you never know. The Giants are a magical team. I've seen them do magical things in my life. So I have faith that they can win this game, and I feel like the only way they can win this game is if they do what I think they will do, is just run the clock out, run the ball. And the Eagles have a pretty solid run defense, but ultimately when it comes down to it, Daniel Jones, just scramble, Saquon, dump it off, HB screens, just all that nature. Can they win? Yes. But ultimately, I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning. I just think that they just have too much firepower compared to the Giants. But I think it's a close game. I think whatever the spread is, I think the Giants do cover it unless it's under 3 points. I can see the game being like 28-23 around there. But ultimately, I do have the Eagles sadly pulling it out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think the Eagles are up there with the Niners in terms of most talented rosters. Again, the quarterback's a bit of a question. I have to give Jalen Hurts credit. He's played very well this year. And we saw when Gardner Minshew came in when he was injured, it wasn't the same team. So he obviously has made huge strides as a passer. Last year, he was great on the ground. When he was forced to throw the ball, he wasn't just bad. He was a bum. I mean, I was excited for Eagles fans to think that he was their guy. I laughed at them. And he has made massive strides this season. I have to give him credit. I just think that talent differential between the Giants and the Eagles is way too much. I think the Eagles will win this, but I do think it'll be close. I mean, again, Brian Daboll is an incredible coach. Nick Sirianni is half the man that Brian Daboll is. I hate the Eagles coach. I don't know why. He just seems like a dick. I don't know. But anyway, I think the Giants will play it close. It's a divisional game. These teams do not like each other. Like you said, Rizzo, the fans will travel. But the Eagles are just too talented. I mean, they're pretty much stacked at every single position group. I think their linebackers are like kind of mid, but other than that, it's a really good team. And I just don't think the Giants are going to be able to compete. We saw them, weirdly enough, like you said, compete with Davis Webb, but weird stuff happens in the NFC East. The Commanders beat the Eagles on Monday night at home. They're beatable. It's possible. This isn't a game where I feel like Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins is the example we keep using against the Bills. This isn't some game where I'd be like, holy shit, the Giants have no chance of winning, but it would be a very, very uphill battle. And I do have to take the Eagles just for the fact that they are one of the most stacked rosters in the league. And the Giants' top weapons are outside of Saquon Barkley are Daniel Bellinger and Isaiah Hodgins. So yeah, I'm going Eagles here, but I think it'll be, whatever the line is, I'd probably jump on the Giants on the line.
Yeah, I think they have enough coaching and enough Giant magic to make it a good game. And I could very much well see them slip by. I think they probably have the best potential story to maybe get to the NFC Championship out of any lower seed in the playoffs, just because of the coaching and what I've seen them do. But I just think the Eagles pull it off. I also agree. I think Nick Sirianni's kind of overrated just because his team is kind of stacked, but that's a hot take. Any final thoughts before we move on? All right, cool. The final matchup before we get into the AFC-NFC Championship, we're going to go with the GOAT, Tom Brady, either hosting a home game to the Giants or going on the road to the 49ers, because me and Spence picked the 49ers beating the Hawks, and then Brady obviously had the Seahawks beating with the Giants. So we'll kind of let you go again just because you're the one sole take here. Who do you have between the Bucks and Giants?
I was filling out this bracket, and I was like, yep, Tom against the Giants. Let's make that happen. So this is another fun Tommy Tom versus the New York Giants matchup. This game is honestly so difficult to actually predict because I feel like the Giants might just straight up be a better team than the Bucks, like just from what I've seen all season, I've watched both these teams a lot because, like I said, big Tom fan, had money on the Giants. I feel like they're both just the Bucks obviously disappointed this season. The Giants exceeded expectations. Like, I kind of what you guys are saying about the Giants, I agree with most of it. I think the one thing that I really like about the Giants is that they just have some weird, like, they just pull shit out of their ass plays. Like, Brian Daboll has plays where I think he is such a better coach than whatever the Bucks are going to do offensively. And I just feel like that factor is something that makes me want to pick the Giants. And I look at the Bucks and I say, okay, is Tom really going to lose to the Giants again? Like, really? Is he really going to lose to them again? This is a game that will be personal for him, very, very personal, because you already know the memes and everything else he's got going on. You would think he wants to have another Brady lose to the Giants moment. God, this game, one of these teams being in the NFC Championship is kind of wild to me. But that's the way it's going to go down because when the Hawks upset the Niners, man, it's going to bust the whole bracket open. Any of these teams can win now. So when I think about this and I just think about the players, I just feel like the teams talent-wise, there might actually be more talent on the Bucks. And then I look at it and I say, how much does coaching matter versus Tom Brady against Daniel Jones? Like, come on. This is Tom Brady, the guy who wins every single time. And one more thing I'd like to point out. Since 2013, Tom Brady's either won the Super Bowl or got knocked out year after year. It was one Super Bowl knocked out, one Super Bowl knocked out, one just you get it. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth has continued. They got knocked out last year. I don't know if he's going to win the Super Bowl, but I think he's going to make a hell of a run this season, and I think he's going to really put a stamp on this. So I like this Bucks team in this game. I just don't feel like either of these teams making the NFC Championship game is going to be making sense to a lot of people, especially with how the season's gone. But Tom just has a knack of winning these kind of games, and I'm not picking against them here. So I'm going Tampa to the NFC Championship.
That's interesting. Tom Brady, having that comeback story, going all the way to the NFC Championship against the Giants. Spence, I'll let you go on this take. Tom Brady won't be versing the Giants on our bracket, but instead the 49ers on the road. So what do you got?
Yeah, the fact that there's a scenario where the Bucks could end up in the NFC Conference Championship game with how, like Michael has said, how bad this roster is overall, how horrendous, I can't say it enough, how horrendous the coaching has been. I mean, there was a time when Byron Leftwich was getting like head coach buzz. That is ridiculous. But the Niners, like I've been saying, are the most stacked roster, I think, in the NFL. They beat these guys like 35-7. I think it wasn't even close. It was like a complete embarrassment. But it's Mr. Irrelevant, a 7th round rookie. And I know Tom Brady was a 6th round pick, but a rookie against Tom Brady. I'm going Bucks here. It's going to make me look stupid. I know it is. But in my heart of hearts, it is Brock Purdy versus Tom Brady. We are past the days of Trent Dilfer and an elite defense winning a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer doesn't win the Super Bowl anymore. Trent Dilfer doesn't get to the Super Bowl. Maybe Brock Purdy's a little bit better than Trent Dilfer, but he's a rookie. I just see him throwing some inopportune picks here, doing maybe a strip sack for a touchdown. The Niners are the difference in talent between these two teams is astronomical. The difference in coaching is astronomical. I cannot say it enough. The fact that I'm even picking the Bucks, myself, I feel like I sound stupid, but it's just I trust my gut. It's Brady versus Brock Purdy, and the fact that the Bucks could make the NFC Championship game with how bad their team is honestly revolting. But it's like we were saying, Brady didn't lose his family to come back and lose to Brock Purdy in the playoffs. He just didn't do that. So I'm going Bucks. I can't really, there's no, deep dive analytics I can give you. There's no even position group really, maybe other than receiver, I guess, and quarterback, where I could say that the Bucks are better than the Niners. Their offensive line is injured. I think Tristan Wirfs is like the only healthy starter on that offensive line. I don't know how they could win this game other than Brady just being Tom fucking Brady and Brock Purdy being, no disrespect to Brock Purdy, he's done what they've asked him to do, but being Mr. Irrelevant when you're facing Tom Brady in the playoffs with a trip to the NFC Championship game on the line.
Yeah, so I This was tough. When I was filling out my bracket, I was looking at it, and I'm kind of on the same column as you guys. I'm essentially watching Tom Brady, the greatest to ever do it in the sport of football, versus Brock Purdy. Who am I going to pick? Tom Brady has so much to play for. We've made this constant joke that he's lost his family for this. And then you got Brock Purdy, who's playing with house money, who's just honestly doing a job. Like, I'm pretty confident that we can all say you can get any starting quarterback in the NFL to do what he's doing, and the 49ers will be just fine.
Josh Dobbs probably could.
Yeah, and he might be even a little bit better. But I look at this 49ers team, and not to say that they're going to put fear in Tom Brady's heart, but the Bucs O-line is injured. You got Bosa, you got a front seven coming at Tom Brady's 45-year-old self. And if not to say Tom Brady's scared, but if I'm Tom Brady, expect to be sacked 10 times that game. And 10 might be a lot, but they're going to come out firing. And Brock Purdy and Tom Brady just played a couple weeks back. I know it's not the playoffs. I know there's not a lot on the line, but let's be realistic. Is Kyle Shanahan going to go up against Tom Brady and expect Brock Purdy to become Jesus Christ? Because ultimately, this is how I look at it. Tom Brady to win against this 49ers team has to be Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, prime Tom Brady, all in one, just to beat Brock Purdy, who needs to be okay. Brock Purdy doesn't need to be special. You got Christian McCaffrey. You got Elijah Mitchell. Christian McCaffrey just ran for 120 yards against the Tampa Bay Bucs, and they couldn't do shit to stop him. Just give it to McCaffrey. Run the ball. Do a quick wide receiver screen. Do a slant to George Kittle. He just needs to be normal for this team to win. I think if this team was healthy, I think if the Bucs defense was good, I think it'd be a different story. But the 49ers forced Tom Brady to throw 2 picks when they played them. The Bucs only put up 7 points against the 49ers. The 49ers team has, like I said earlier, given up 20 points 4 times this season. And the fact that the Niners stopped Tom Brady to only 7 points a couple weeks back, I know it's in the playoffs, but Tom Brady's going to be on the road. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Tom Brady's going to lose to the team that he's going to end up going to next season. I think Tom Brady's going to be a 49er next season. That's kind of my take.
Please no. Please no. No, anywhere else, not the Niners. Please, anywhere else.
I just lose a game with Tom Brady.
I just think with what they have on defense and offense, and San Francisco's a hot weather area. Why not just go to the Bay?
He's an eligible bachelor now.
Yeah,
Valley lady.
That is very true. But yeah, I just look at the 49ers, man, and to expect a 45-year-old Tom Brady to go out there against one of the best defenses football has seen in a few years is a lot to ask. Because when you look at this past defense, when they play them, the highest receiver with yardage-wise was Chris Godwin, I think at 50-something, and then Mike Evans had 44. So the run game is not going to beat the Niners. It's going to be the game in the air, and I just don't know if an inconsistent Mike Evans and a very injury-prone Chris Godwin is going to lead Tom Brady to the NFC Championship. And I'm unfortunately going to have to go with the Niners in, honestly, a pretty dominant fashion. And it sucks to say, because to say that we saw Tom Brady win his 8th Super Bowl would actually be mind-boggling. But kind of like you said, Spence, I think like my heart wants to say Tom Brady, but if we're just being realistic, just looking at the rosters, looking at coaching, Todd Bowles sucks. Tom Brady's going to probably have to be the coach of that game. And against all the weapons, both on offense and defense, I think the 49ers probably take it like 34-13. Like, I think it's going to kind of be a massacre.
I can't blame you for that, but the one thing I will say is, so you just said Tom Brady will have to be the coach of that game. I think that would be what wins them the game. Like I said before, when he is controlling the plays, when he's controlling the offense, they're very, very effective. And I know they got killed the first time they played the Niners, but kind of like LeBron James, I don't know why I keep bringing him up, but regular season Tom Brady and playoff Tom Brady, he's a different animal, but the same beast in the playoffs. You know what I mean? He just has it. And I think the Bucs weapons are no slouch. I mean, Mike Evans is finding himself here late in the season. Chris Godwin's a stud when he can stay on the field. The fact that Kyle Rudolph is catching balls is kind of sad in 2023, but they have a good team. Fournette, playoff Lenny is a thing. Rashad White's kind of good. Their O-line sucks, but Tom Brady just broke his own record this season for most completions in a season. And it's because that man gets the ball out quick. if he is able to control the offense, do what he wants to do, quick passes, short game, and then take the top off, not run the ball up the middle on first and second down every single drive like Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles wants him to do, he can neutralize that pass rush to the best anyone can. No one can fully neutralize, Nick Bosa and everyone they have over there. But he gets the ball out so fast that those guys won't even have a chance to get past his turnstile offensive lineman and get to him. That's why he doesn't get sacked. He's a statue in the pocket. That man cannot run. His 40 is probably slower than, I don't know. I'm trying to think of someone slow. And
yourself, maybe, you know what I mean?
I'm pretty slow.
Yeah.
I feel like his 40 is probably slower than me. But he doesn't get sacked because he gets that ball out. And I just think in a legacy game against fucking Mr. Irrelevant, a rookie, Brock Purdy, he finds a way. I think he'll just turn it up a notch. Mike Evans will turn it up a notch. Playoff Lenny will turn it up a notch. And I don't know. I don't know why. I don't blame you for picking the Niners. The Niners are the better team, clearly. But I got the Bucks, and I'm gonna roll with it.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Let me take a stab at this real quick. Let me be very clear in what I've been saying on this podcast. If you're an Eagles fan or a Vikings fan or a Giants fan or a Cowboys fan and you want to see your team in the Super Bowl, you better hope and pray that the Seahawks beat the Niners, because I think the Niners are the best team in this conference, and I don't think it's close. Like, I honestly believe they will steamroll every other single team in this conference. I think the reason why the Seahawks have a chance is because of the division rivalry and the way that they play each other. I feel like, similar to what Rizzo said, if these two teams played, like the Bucks are not, I can't, like, the way my bracket worked out, they're in the NFC Championship game. But like, the Niners are so damn good everywhere that I don't think Brock Purdy is going to matter. I don't think it matters who's quarterback. As long as they can pass the ball 20 yards and can hit a wide open Debo or Kittle or whatever, like on a 10-yard screen or whatever, they're going to dominate physically up front, defensively, coaching. Like, they are such a better team than Tampa, where if this was the end of the being a matchup, I think this would not be close. And I also think that San Fran, if they advance past Seattle, I think they are going to win the NFC and possibly the Super Bowl.
And to kind of piggyback off that, I that's kind of the point I was making. I think they just need Brock Purdy to be okay. Like, they don't even need, like, they could bring Archie Manning, who's in high school right now, and he probably can get the job done. Like, I know that's like kind of trolling, but I actually genuinely believe, gun to my head, they can bring a D1 kind of style recruit quarterback to just do a solid job, and they'll just win on defense. And Christian McCaffrey just running through the Buccaneers defense alone.
And it's not just McCaffrey. They have Debo, who has not a very exciting season, but they're going to unleash him in the playoffs. They have no reason to hold him back anymore. Kittle and Brock Purdy's chemistry has been on fire. They clearly have something going there. And then Brandon Ayuk's a very good weapon as well that doesn't get talked about very much. And then just defensively, like, I mean, I don't think Tom's going to even score 2 touchdowns against the Niners if that's a matchup on the road. So, yeah, as much as I would be rooting against the Niners because I hate the Niners and I love Tom Brady, I couldn't realistically put my money on that.
And I can't blame you guys for feeling that way. You're probably right, but I don't know. I got to roll with the GOAT.
Hey, roll the GOAT, baby.
Yeah, when all else fails, you put your money on Tom Brady. So I can't fault you there. So now we're gonna go over to the AFC NFC Championship game. So we're gonna start off with what I think is probably going to be a more exciting AFC Championship game, no matter how it stacks up. It's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs versus either the Bills or the Bengals. I'll start off since I was kind of the only lone wolf having the Bengals here. So when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs versus Cincinnati Bengals, you got Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, arguably the top 2 quarterbacks in football, having some history with the Bengals just beating them in the playoffs last year, the Bengals playing them this year, and also winning again. I think the Bengals kind of have the Chiefs' number. I think when it comes down to it, the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs have Andy Reid, who's a better coach. And I think their play calling, their play style is a lot more effective than the Bengals per se. I think you got Patrick Mahomes just scrambling. He has the best arm in football. And then you have these silly dump offs to Jerick McKinnon that will score touchdowns. You can throw it deep to McCall Hardman. You can throw it deep to all these guys that they have. You can throw it to Travis Kelce. You can have Isaiah Pacheco run for 80 to 90 yards a game. Like, the Chiefs on paper and the way that they're ran or run, I think is effective for the playoffs. Obviously, this game's going to be at a neutral site. And then I look at the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, Mr. Big Game himself. I've been talking so highly about him, and I know I'm wearing the Joe Burrow jersey, genuinely not being biased at all. I just think Joe Burrow has a mission. I think he has the Chiefs' number. I think the talent that he has around him elevates him to another level because I think Joe Burrow is good enough to make bad players better around him, but you arguably have the best wide receiver core in football. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, it's debatable. You know what I'm saying? Like you got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, you got so many people, but it's debatable that they're the best wide receiver core duo in football. T. Higgins can be a number one option on a lot of teams that he goes to. I just think you have to game plan around the Bengals a lot better than you have to game plan around the Chiefs, because I think if you can stop the quick throws, if you can stop the Chiefs' long throws and have them force them to run the ball, I think they'll be a lot more successful because the Bengals have a great run game. I think the Bengals have a lot going for them per se. I just think that Joe Burrow in the big moment, in the big game, against a team that he has their number, is going to do what he did last year, be an underdog, go to the Super Bowl. And once again, it's not far-fetched. The Bengals are a red-hot team. This defense has been playing tremendously better to what they were last year. Eli Apple isn't a cone this year. He might be just whatever, a step down to it. He's not elite by any means, but he's feasible. And yeah, I'm going to go pretty bold, and I got the Bengals going back-to-back Super Bowls. Realistically, is that feasible? It's going to be a hard thing to do because we mentioned it earlier on the podcast. Going to back-to-back Super Bowls is hard in itself, and going in the path that the Bengals have to go through with the Bills and the Chiefs, it's kind of a hard battle, but I got faith in Joe Burrow. He's proven to me that he can win the big games, and I think it's another legacy game for him, and he's going to make that Super Bowl.
Yeah. So we're going on to the Bills and Chiefs now.
Yeah,
Okay.
since you guys have that pick.
Yeah. So this will be a neutral site, and I think that does matter a lot. I think the home field for both of these teams, whether it was in Buffalo or Kansas City, would be huge. And this is the rematch that I want. I want to see these two teams after the overtime shit from last season. Now there's no complaining about a coin flip. Both teams look at the ball. Can't complain about that, all right? So I look at these two teams, and I've been very impressed by the Chiefs, all right? I think that with what Mahomes has weapons-wise, he's put together such a fantastic season, definitely deserving of MVP. And I look at the Bills, and they started off so hot. They were the best team in football for, I don't know, like the first half, 2/3 of the season. Like, they impressed me a ton, but I get nervous about their defense. First of all, this game will be such a shootout. It'll be insane. I don't care what the over is. Betting it. Who's going to win this game? Realistically, it's a coin flip. Like, not that, no pun intended. But I feel like they literally either of these teams could win this game. I think that it would be a very entertaining game, and I think that both these quarterbacks, this will matter both of them a lot. This is like Rizzo was saying, this is a legacy game for both of them. All three of those AFC teams they could be the three best teams. Them and the Niners are my top four in terms of best teams in football. I just feel like when I look at this, and just not to beat a dead horse, but I feel like it's just the Buffalo season. Like, I just feel like that they have it. I feel like they've had it coming in from last season, the way it ended, coming to this season, how hot they were. They stumbled. They had some adversity. They got through it. They won some big games down the road, and I feel like they're not gonna let Patrick Mahomes get by them again. I feel like this is probably the weakest team Mahomes has had. I mean, in my opinion, the fact that they're a 1 seed and they'd be in the AFC Championship game is a huge credit to him, because this is not a team on paper I'd look at and be like, yep, that's a Super Bowl caliber team, but they are because of Patrick Mahomes. But on the same token, I think Josh Allen is so good. I know he hasn't proven it yet, and I think this is going to be one of those games where he's either going to – I mean, he's proven that he's a really good quarterback, but he hasn't proven that he's in the same tier as, like, Mahomes. And I feel like this is one of those games that he has to win. I think he knows he has to win it. And I just believe that he's going to go down as a really great quarterback all time. I think this is the game where he really just proves it. He wins this. He goes to the Super Bowl. I'm going Buffalo here. So I just like it. I just like it a lot. It's just a gut feeling. It's a feeling of This team's been the best. They're kind of starting to they faded a little. They're cutting it back together. I like it. I like it a lot. So I'm going Buffalo.
Yeah, I kind of feel you. Looking at Rizzo's Chiefs versus Bengals matchup, I feel like the Chiefs would win that game because they owe the Bengals a beatdown. You know what I mean? That game would be personal for them, just like the Bills owe the Chiefs a beatdown. It's that game. Even though they did beat them in the regular season this year, that game in the playoffs last year was as heartbreaking, I'm sure, a loss as you can have as a player, where they didn't make mistakes. They fucking hung in there with them, and they just didn't get the chance. Like you said, we're not going to hear any complaining about that this year if this game does go to overtime. I think the Chiefs roster, like you said, is obviously it's good, but it's not as good as they don't have Tyreek Hill like they had last year. They're a little bit banged up on defense. Josh Allen, he got a little bit people were starting to turn on him a little bit this year just because he had that stretch where he was throwing a couple picks a game, really bad in the red zone for 4 or 5 games there. But his elbow was messed up. That was an injury when he first got hurt that people were like, this could take him out for a couple of months. And he didn't miss a game. And I think he's really come back into form these past couple of weeks. So he hasn't had that legacy game, that playoff game where he can prove that he can hang with Patrick Mahomes or even Joe Burrow in the playoffs and be one of those super alphas who, you kind of feel like Mahomes and Allen, based on the way the playoffs have been and the matchups they've had, this is sort of like a modern day Brady Manning situation. Yep. And so far, Josh Allen hasn't really been able to hold a candle to Patrick Mahomes in those huge games. And I think this is the moment where, again, the NFL isn't scripted. And if it was, the Bills would obviously win this game. But it just feels like they're due. It feels like this is the year that they get over the hump of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are a little bit vulnerable this year. They're a little bit banged up. They don't have Tyreek Hill. And yeah, I like the Bills in this game. It's Patrick Mahomes is better than Josh Allen, but the Bills have better weapons. I think they have a better defense, and they have more to play for, even though obviously the Chiefs have a ton to play for. They're playing to get to the Super Bowl. It's just they have so much on their shoulders, and they're playing for something bigger than football. And I just think this will be the time, maybe the only time ever I think Patrick Mahomes is that good, where Josh Allen will be able to get one over on him.
Yeah, and I do want to say in terms of the Bengals-Bills prediction, like I was saying last round when we were talking about it, I think whoever comes out of the Bengals-Bills will end up making the Super Bowl, kind of like what we were saying, just because I think I'm more so just betting on Joe Burrow being the more reliable big game player than Josh Allen in that scenario. But I think if the Bills do play the Chiefs, I think it's due. The revenge game for DeMar Hamlin. Josh Allen needs something to prove. He's deemed as a top 3 quarterback in football. And to be honest, he doesn't have an MVP to back it up. He doesn't have a Super Bowl clincher to back it up. He's just there based on talent, to be honest. It's not like he hasn't really proven that he deserves to be that top 3 quarterback spot. And I think this game is going to solidify that for him if he's there against the Chiefs. Obviously, like we were saying, Patrick Mahomes is the modern day Tom Brady kind of player, but this might be the year that Peyton makes it to the Super Bowl. And I think this might be Josh Allen or Joe Burrow's opportunity to make the Super Bowl. So I'm in agreement there with you guys.
Sweet.
Cool. And then we're going to head over to a very interesting NFC game, and we'll have the Eagles against either the Tampa Bay Bucks or the 49ers. So, Michael, we'll let you kind of take it since you had the Bucks and Eagles.
I think Spencer has that too, right?
I do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess it's just me. Wow. Okay. So whatever. You'll take it. You go first.
Yeah. I'll go first. Me and Spencer are on the same wavelength here, right? Everyone knows that Tom Brady's in the NFC Championship now. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how Tom, with this shitty team, can make the NFC Championship game. But the way my bracket works, all right, Dallas at home. Okay. Yep. Giants at home. Yep. So now he's going against the Eagles, another NFC East team. It's just getting tempting. I'm just saying, it's getting tempting. Last season they beat them both. They beat them both times in the regular season and the playoffs. And I feel like I just feel so strongly that Jalen Hurts is someone that you cannot completely rely on in a playoff game. I just don't. I feel like their team is so good, but I just don't believe that Jalen Hurts is that guy where I'm like, yep, they're going to make the Super Bowl with that roster. I do view their roster as kind of a knockoff Niners roster where it's so strong in the trenches. They have the weapons. They have I'm higher on Nick Sirianni than I think you guys are, and I'm also higher probably on the home field advantage of Philadelphia. That is a rowdy place to play in. As much as no one likes Eagles fans, I think this game would be one where it should be the Eagles. It should be the Eagles. But I just feel like Jalen Hurts makes me so nervous. I mean, he has that thing about him where I feel like last season in the playoffs when these two teams played, I bet confidently on the Bucks because I had a feeling, they were heavy favorites already, but Jalen Hurts, I just don't feel with him. But I cannot, in good faith, tell people of this podcast who listen and subscribe to RizPod that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to make the Super Bowl. Because I'm telling you, as much as I love Tom Brady, this is the worst team he's ever had. And I feel like the Eagles are so stacked everywhere else, coming off a first-round bye, coming off a game where I feel like, they're going to be more rested, more healthy. They're so good, and where it matters, where games are actually won, is the defense. And they're so much better defensively than Tampa is. I mean, we haven't really talked much about the Eagles, I don't feel like yet, but they have a nasty secondary. James Bradbury, Darius Slay. They have just a disgusting. Their defensive, their linebackers are really good. Their defensive line, their run defense has been something that's been a problem for them that they've tried to patch. But I feel like that's not even Tampa Bay's strength. They can't run the ball anyways. So that's not gonna be some issue. Whereas if they're going against the Niners, where I'd be like, okay, the Niners run all over Philadelphia. Tampa Bay, I don't view that the same way. I don't feel like that they can do that. So I just look at this game, as much as I'd love to put Tom Brady in Super Bowl, and I think it is possible. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I think it's possible that Tom could run through the entire NFC East and make the Super Bowl. Because, when he's one game away from that bad boy, you think he wants to make another Super Bowl with this shitty team and just prove a point? I think he does. But the Eagles are just better than them. I view the Eagles as so much better than both the Cowboys and the Giants. I know you guys are NFC East guys, and maybe you guys feel differently. But from what I've seen all season, like, the Eagles have been a powerhouse. And I feel like that they will take care of Tampa here. So I'm picking the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl.
So the Eagles, I feel like, are a little bit fraudulent because the NFC just isn't as good as the AFC. It just isn't.
Yep, 100%.
And their record, they're a good team, but I think their record is a little bit overblown because of that. Look, the Eagles are the better team. They, like you said, have a stacked defense, stacked weapons. But Jalen Hurts, did he give up his family for this game? No, he didn't. No, I'm kidding. I'm picking the Eagles. As much as I would like to pick the Bucks as well, I, again, like you said, can't in good faith put this I can't let Todd Bowles coach a Super Bowl. I just can't do it. I can't do it to the NFL fans. I can't do it to the people of Tampa Bay even. I can't do it to Tom. They're not going to make it. I think the Eagles are just too stacked overall, and I think, although I felt that way about the Niners, Brock Purdy is a rookie. I'm a big believer in, like, trends and tropes. Rookies don't win Super Bowls. Jalen Hurts, I think the jury is still out on how good he is, but he's proven he can play at a high level. Yep. And he's proven that, as honestly, as dumb as this phrase and as how overblown it is now, he has that dog in him. He really does. I think he shows up in those big moments. He's played a national championship. Obviously, it's not the same, but he's proven time and time again that he can show up in big games and he doesn't shrink. And I think he's obviously better than Brock Purdy at this point. He has more experience in the league. And just with how much better the Eagles roster is overall compared to the Buccaneers, how much better the coaching is, it's just going to be too much. Even the GOAT won't be able to overcome that. But when he's on the Niners the next season, he'll probably roll them in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, and before Rizzo goes, just to add on something about Jalen Hurts, I don't want it to sound like I think he's bad. Listen, I think Jalen Hurts is a really solid quarterback in a great system. He has the weapons, he has the great defense, he has the great run game, he's mobile. It fits him perfectly. You cannot come up with a better system and team for Jalen Hurts. I just don't think he's an MVP kind of player. That's where I'm at. I don't think he's in that discussion. I don't think he's anywhere close to it. The other thing I'm going to say is this has nothing to do with this pick, but I love how the NFL playoffs are set up this season because I feel like in one side with the AFC, it's three powerhouses. Everybody knows it's those three teams. No one else even has a chance. Okay, that's going to be so entertaining to watch those teams play each other. And we're going to get at least we're going to get 2 games. We're going to get Bills, Bengals, and then winner plays Chiefs. That's awesome. And then you look at the NFC, and I feel like honestly, it is so different. Like I feel like the Niners are definitely the best team, but I'm not going to keep talking about the Seahawks, but I honestly believe that they're going to get knocked out early. And I think the whole thing, if that happens, literally anybody could make the Super Bowl. Like you could tell me it could go anyway. NFL is crazy. Weird things happen. You could tell me the Giants beat the Eagles, like you guys were saying. It could happen. I totally see that. Another division rivalry game, those two teams. I'm not out here saying, yep, the Eagles are going to make the Super Bowl. I don't feel nearly as strong about that as I guess I am saying that, but I don't feel nearly as strong as I do the Bills, where I'm confident they are going to make it. With the Eagles, I'm kind of like, well, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. The way my bracket breaks, it's the Eagles. If you could tell me any team makes it, I would totally buy it. I think the NFC is going to be so fun to watch this playoffs because I think it's going to be an absolute shit show. And that's why I think it's not crazy to say, even though me and Spencer are taking the Eagles here, it's not crazy to think that Tampa Tom could actually make the Super Bowl again, because this is the easiest path, easiest conference, easiest thing I've ever seen. If he gets the 3 NFC East teams, I mean, come on. Like, that could not break any better for him. Who are you afraid of? Minnesota? No. It's the Philly? No, I don't think they're that strong either. It's just San Francisco, and they have Mr. Irrelevant at quarterback. The NFC, have fun betting on this. Like my philosophy is, and it's the way I broke the first round, I bet underdog in terms of odds, because I think that this is going to just be an absolute shit show. And yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, no, I think you guys bring great points, and I'm in the same boat as you guys. I think a lot of the NFC teams, besides the 49ers, are, in a sense, very fraudulent. Like, their records are very inflated. Like, the Vikings are, a 13-win team.
Ridiculous.
Or a 12-win team. They are not that good. Like,
Yeah.
The Eagles, I will give them their flowers. They have been tremendous. What did they start? 9-0. Like, they had a great run. Jalen Hurts has been playing at an MVP level. You mentioned their Eagles secondary. Darius Slay, Bradbury have been tremendous. This defense has been elite. Their run game has been solid with Jalen Hurts as a threat. A.J. Brown is having a career year. Devontae Smith has been great. We haven't even mentioned Dallas Goedert yet. Like, this team is stacked. And when I line them up against the 49ers, you have an MVP candidate in Jalen Hurts, and you have Mr. Irrelevant. And Spencer, you bring up a great point. Historically, rookie quarterbacks can't get the job done, regardless if they're home, road, away, whatever. Something happens where they just choke. Is it plausible to think that Brock Purdy is going to win 3 playoff games in a row to get to the Super Bowl? It is not plausible, but football is crazy. The NFC is crazy. And yes, I have Mr. Irrelevant once again doing the bare minimum, and he's going to make his way to the Super Bowl. And here's my reasons why. Jalen Hurts is going up against a 49er defense that he has not seen unlike any. Obviously, the Cowboys, they have a great front seven. Like, Micah Parsons is no joke. That boy is tough. And whatever his controversy is going on, I know, like, he's had some memes recently, but Micah Parsons, and like you said, Spencer, has that dog in him. He will go out there, get that ball, build that pressure. And the difference between Jalen Hurts and a lot of other these quarterbacks that will face good defenses is he's mobile. Like, he will get out the pocket. He will make runs. He kind of, I don't know if this is a hard take, but he kind of like gives me Marcus Mariota vibes, but like way better when Mariota was really good, just because Marcus Mariota is one of the fastest QBs in the league at the time. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is quick too, but Hurts has a better arm than Lamar Jackson. And Mariota had a pretty solid arm like early on in his career. So I think Jalen Hurts is just a lot more of a glorified Mariota with just a better. But when I look at it, I don't think like the 49ers defense and just the 49ers team is going to be scared of being away. I just think Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel should be fully healthy at that time. Elijah Mitchell, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, like all these guys, we just need Brock Purdy to be he can be irrelevant. Like, I think Kyle Shanahan is going to do a great job of not having the game come down to Brock Purdy. And who knows? Maybe Brock Purdy has the game of his life. Like if he has the game of his life, I think this game might not even be close. But ultimately, I have this game being a grudge match. I have it being a defensive stalemate. I have honestly the 49ers probably winning in a field goal. Like I think it could get nasty. Like I could think a 17-16 kind of game. I don't really see a shootout just because when the lights get bright, and I guess it's kind of hypocritical to say, I don't know if Jalen Hurts has that factor in him because I think the difference between these two teams is I think the Eagles need Jalen Hurts to win, but I don't think the Niners need Brock Purdy. And I think that's where I'm making my pick here. I'm going to pick the better defense and I'm going to pick the better roster. And I kind of pointed it out earlier. I think Sirianni's kind of a little overrated. I like Kyle Shanahan's play calling. I like what he has to his dispensal or whatever, to like disposal. Thank you. I was looking for that word. I just think McCaffrey, all these weapons can do a lot more. And if Brock Purdy throws for 300 yards, like that's insane. So I would go under on this game. I think it will be like a 17-16, 21-20 kind of game, but I have the 49ers clinching this NFC Championship game and making the Super Bowl for the first time in honestly not that long. They were just there. So I have them making it back to the Super Bowl.
I like your point, but my only rebuttal would be that how likely is it that for 3 games in the playoffs, the Niners are going to be able to maintain a lead and not have if the game is close or if they fall behind, they're going to have to throw the ball. They're going to have to lean on Brock Purdy. And if they're in a 2-minute offense, they're not going to be able to just do dink and dunks. How likely is it that 3 straight games in the playoffs against, I know the NFC isn't that strong, but the best teams in the NFC, that they're not going to find themselves behind once in the late stages of a game? They're good enough. It's possible. It really is possible, but it's not likely. That's my only that's why I took the Bucs over them. But again, they are on paper, like both of you said, the most talented team in the NFC, bar none. So they very easily could make the Super Bowl, and Brock Purdy will be the stuff of legends.
Yeah, I just want to point out, like, I agree with what you're saying for sure about it seems unrealistic for a rookie, especially as Mr. Irrelevant, to go 3 straight games in the playoffs. But I feel like we haven't actually talked about how good Brock Purdy's been. Like, I get it. He's in a great system. He has the offensive line, the great defense, the excellent coach, excellent weapons. He's still making very impressive throws. I've watched a good amount of their games, and he's making throws that, I don't think Jimmy G could making throws I don't think Trey Lance could make. He might be the best quarterback they've had in the last couple of years. And I know that's kind of sounds crazy, but like at a certain point, you got to put a little respect on his name. And he really has. I don't think you win however many games they've won. Is he 6-0 right now? I don't think you win 6 games with a quarterback that is awful. I think he's definitely good. And I think that the difference between him and Jalen Hurts, I don't think it's as wide as like obviously most people would say, okay, 7th round pick and MVP candidate. Like Jalen Hurts is much, much better than him. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think they're a little bit closer than people would say.
And I want to make a comment on that because it's true. We haven't highlighted Brock Purdy's 6-game stretch as a starter at all. And I was looking at the stats and I had them written down and I never mentioned it. But in the 6 games that he started, he's thrown for 1,300 yards, which, mind you, is pretty close to Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence in the last 6 games. He's 13 touchdowns thrown for only 3 interceptions in the 6 games he's been as a starter. Those are not chump numbers. Granted, we've been talking about how stacked this roster is. When you have such a great defense, it opens up the floor for you to be a little bit more risky and have these big plays that Purdy's been having. Yeah. But ultimately, Brock Purdy hasn't been a slouch. Like he's been coming out, having these good games. Obviously, he's roughly averaging around like 200 to 220 yards thrown a game, which isn't superstar numbers.
They just don't pass, though, is the thing.
Right. Their game is promptly just the run game and then whatever dump and dish hit to Kittle, hit to Ayuk. But Brock Purdy, I genuinely think if he just continues to be at this stagnant trajectory, the 49ers defense alone with their run game can just burst through the NFC.
Yeah, he's not a bum. I think my point is more just like, are they 6-0 in that stretch with like Jacoby Brissett at quarterback? Probably. Are they 6-0 even with like not even like Falcons Marcus Mariota? Are they 6-0? Probably. Yeah. So he's not the worst quarterback ever. He belongs in the league. I think he's proven that at least as a backup, maybe as a starter. Who knows? But he's a rookie. I just don't see it personally, but I get the argument for it. I just think it's funny that they spent 3 first-round picks to get Trey Lance, and he's started like 2 games for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And now Brock Purdy is lighting it up. Is he going to be the starter next year? Who knows?
If he
And
wins the Super Bowl, but I don't know. If they don't win the
right.
Super Bowl, I think he have to go with Trey Lance again. I hope they do.
Yeah, I think historically Brock Purdy doesn't have history on his side, but history isn't always correct 100% of the time. So now we're going to go to the big thing. What we'll do is we'll go kind of one-on-one since we all have different Super Bowl predictions. Spence, we'll have you go first with your Super Bowl predictions being the Eagles and the Bills. Who do you got winning this year's Super Bowl and why?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it turned out with this matchup because I do feel like it's a bit chalky. Like, I think if you polled America, this would probably be the highest percentage matchup that people had. But I think the reason I have the Eagles getting here, like I've mentioned, is that their roster and the 49ers roster is so clearly above the rest of the NFC. It isn't close. Jalen Hurts is just better than Brock Purdy as well, in my opinion. And that's really why they're here. And I think the Bills are here because, like we have all highlighted, there are 3 major powerhouses in the AFC. The Bills would have to go through 2 of them to get here. But I just think it's the team of destiny. And I've never been a big believer in the team of destiny. That's because normally the team of destiny is someone like the Jaguars. This is a Bills team who I picked as to win the Super Bowl before the season started. This is a loaded team. They had revenge on their mind and something more to play for even before the Damar Hamlin situation. So you combine this really talented team with, playing for their teammate who had such a scary situation against the Bengals and then playing against a Chiefs team who it's personal in that game. I think those little things, those little intangible things are the edge when you have one great team playing another great team. And so I really do believe this will be the Super Bowl matchup, and I really believe the Bills will win this game. I think whether this matchup was Eagles-Bills, Eagles-Bengals, Eagles-Chiefs, the AFC team is winning this. And it's funny, I said the same thing last year that I thought the AFC Championship game was the Super Bowl, and then the Rams won. But I really think the AFC Championship game is the Super Bowl this year. These are 2 very talented teams, but similar to the comparisons I've been making throughout the NFC with Tom Brady and these inexperienced quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts is just not the same quarterback as Josh Allen. And I know we've seen it like with Nick Foles, where he showed up in the Super Bowl and he just balled the fuck out. But large in part, in these huge games when it matters most, you're going to lean on your quarterback. And I think Josh Allen has a lot to prove. I think the Bills actually on defense aren't as talented as the Eagles. They're a little bit more banged up. The weapons are honestly a close conversation, but these teams are even enough that when you take in the fact that Josh Allen is just a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, I don't think anyone would debate that. And the fact that they have all of these things we've been talking about the whole time, not to beat a dead horse, but the Damar Hamlin thing and just feeling like that they're due for the Super Bowl this year, I think I got to go Bills. And, it might be chalky. It might be predictable. It is what it is. It's just what I feel. And I'm going to throw some money down on them to pull this thing out, even starting probably this weekend. I'll throw down a Super Bowl bet for the Bills. So I just think it's meant to happen. And there's so many ways this can go. There's so many great teams, especially in the AFC. But I think we're going to really this year end up with a fun Super Bowl. I think the Eagles will be able to hang with the Bills. I think the Eagles will be able to hang with any of those teams. Maybe a pick six, a blocked punt, something goes their way. They can win, but they can't. They're just not the same team. They don't have the same level of quarterback as any of those 3 teams have. So that's why I'm going Bills. Super Bowl champions.
There you go. Spencer's pick being the Bills over the Eagles. Talking about a little bit of chalky, but honestly, with how their bracket shaped up, Michael, your Super Bowl is the same Eagles versus Bills, but yours was a roller coaster of a way to get there. So who do you have taking it?
A roller coaster to say the least, baby. Yeah, the NFC of my bracket is going to be fun to watch. Yeah, so looking at this matchup, I kind of agree with what Spencer was saying. Like it feels chalky to put the 1 seed Eagles versus the 2 seed Buffalo that everybody's picking. But this is just the way my bracket went. I will say though, I'm much less confident in the Eagles. I feel like any team in the NFC could be in this spot. But when I look at how it breaks down, I feel like the Eagles are really they're just the team. The way their bracket works, I just feel pretty good about them. when I look at this individual matchup, regardless of how they get there, I think it'd be a really good game. Like, I feel like this would be one of those games where people are going to be really high on Buffalo, but Eagles are one of those teams where they're tough. Like, they got the tough fan base, got the tough coach, they got the tough players. They would be able to grind this out and make this a really good game. I don't want to go too long because I do actually agree with basically everything Spencer said. I feel like this is going to be Buffalo season. I will also be hitting up the sports book and putting some money on them to win the AFC, but not the Super Bowl because go Hawks, baby. But I just feel like Josh Allen, I'm a believer in him. You're either a believer in him or you're not as that guy, and I think he can actually be that guy. And I don't feel the same about Jalen Hurts. So when it comes down to it, I just like the Buffalo Bills so much this season. And I just feel like regardless of all the things that had happened before or after during the season, whatever, their team, just as a football team throughout the season, it's get lost how fucking dominant they've been. Like they are just so good, so well rounded. And if they get their defensive players back, I feel even more confident. So I'm going Buffalo here. I feel like Josh Allen, this is his season. He's such an easy guy to root for too. Like him and Joe Burrow. Mahomes' brother kind of like throws a little wrench. Mahomes is very likable as well, but his brother and his wife. I won't get into Mahomes'
In his voice too.
And his voice, yeah. I won't get into Mahomes' personal family or whatever. But those two guys, I feel like both of them are so due for a Super Bowl. I feel like it will be one of them this season. I do agree with Rizzo. I think the Bengals would be the Chiefs as well. So I'm going Josh Allen here, picking the Bills. Me and Spencer got the same exact Super Bowl pick, same exact teams, but I think that says something. We're just smarter than you, Rizzo. I think that's what we're getting at here.
Yeah, sometimes it takes two to tango, but sometimes I kind of like dancing solo. And so for my Super Bowl predictions, we have the Joe Burrow-led Bengals against Mr. Irrelevant 49ers, making it all the way to the Super Bowl. And basically the matchup of the century. You got Mr. Joe Burrow making his second Super Bowl versus the Cinderella story, in a sense, Brock Purdy-led 49ers. He just won 3 games in a row to get to the Super Bowl. Why can't he do it a fourth time? Why can't Brock Purdy lead this team to some tough matchups against who was it in the first round? The Seahawks, to then the Bucks, to then the Eagles. Why can't he beat one of the 3 powerhouses?
Oh, so now the Seahawks are a tough matchup, Mister. Oh, they're gonna slaughter them. Okay,
they will, but your motivational speech kind of got me thinking. It went from a 21-point game to a 13-point game. So back to what I was saying. Yeah, why can't he beat one of these powerhouse teams in the AFC? I'm going to tell you why he can't beat the Cincinnati Bengals team, because I have the Cincinnati Bengals taking the Super Bowl after they honestly kind of folded last season against this Rams. Joe Burrow and this high-powered offense, ultimately, I think it comes down to, Spencer, what you were saying about Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts in the last round was, if the 49ers are down in this game, come Super Bowl, can you count on Brock Purdy going Baker Mayfield style, 99 yards to hit a game-winning drive to win in the Super Bowl? I don't think so. I think when it comes to Super Bowl, obviously defenses matter. Obviously, like schemes matter. Like I remember when the Seahawks played the Broncos so many years ago, when the Broncos were that team offensively, I'm like, oh my God, Peyton Manning's going to fucking stomp them. And he got shut out. Like the Seahawks destroyed him. But I think this is a little bit different because the Niners don't have someone you can count on in the big game. When the lights shine brightest, you have 50, 60 million people watching Brock Purdy. That's going to take a toll on him. He has never had a big game under his belt. Joe Burrow has done it numerous times in the NFL, in college, coming off a Super Bowl last year where he lost to the Rams, which you can argue he should have won. They kind of had, honestly, a mistake towards the fourth quarter where they led the Rams to have that run. I think Joe Burrow does what Joe Burrow is supposed to do, and he closes it out. Do I think that it's a lock? I don't think so. If I were to bet, I would tell everybody to throw 50 on either the Bengals, Bills, and Chiefs to all play the 49ers, because I think it's one of those 3 versus the 49ers. You're bound to hit something because those odds are probably plus 2,000 higher. But the reason why I have Joe Burrow over not only the Chiefs, Bills, and the 49ers is I think big game mantra. I think clutch genes. I think team chemistry. I just think the aura around a team and just vibes in general really matter, which is funny coming from me when the Bills literally have everything I just mentioned. I just think the Bengals are once again a sleeper team. Like, sure, we're giving them their flowers. Sure, we're saying like they're one of the three powerhouses, but we're talking about the Bills, then maybe the Bengals and the Chiefs. And then in the NFC, we're talking about the Niners, we're talking about the Tampa Bay Toms, and then we're talking about the Eagles. I feel like not a lot of people have the Bengals projected to even get here. And I think that's when the Bengals shine brightest. I can very much see Jamar Chase having the game of his life against the 49ers. And the 49ers have a shutdown defense. I know this. Their front seven, Bosa, like we already been talking about this. But ultimately, Brock Purdy is going to have to make plays in the Super Bowl. Christian McCaffrey cannot run it during this whole game. And it's kind of hypocritical because what's different from the Super Bowl compared to all the other games beforehand? I just think the NFC is fraudulent. I think it's weak. I think the Niners genuinely are coming up against their first real competition in the Bengals. And even if it's not the Bengals, it'll be the Bills. If it's not the Bills, it'll be the Chiefs. I just think what those teams have out in the AFC just have a different kind of Kool-Aid than what they have in the NFC. They're drinking beer while the NFC is just drinking apple juice. I just think whoever comes out of the AFC, with my pick being the Bengals, I don't think they're going to stomp all over them because ultimately defense is a big factor. I think they can intercept Joe Burrow for a pick six. I think they can get a strip sack. I think they can get a punt return. Like anything can happen in the Super Bowl. But when it comes down to it, I trust Joe Burrow to hit T. Higgins. I trust Joe Burrow to hit Hayden Hurst. I trust Joe Burrow to hit Jamar Chase. I trust Joe Burrow to hit Joe Mixon. Do I trust Brock Purdy when the lights shine brightest to hit his weapons? I don't. I think his Cinderella story ends and Joe Burrow's legacy statement starts. And that's why I ultimately have the Bengals over the 49ers in a close 23-21 win.
Well done. Well done.
Cool. Go ahead, Spence.
Yeah, I just have one tangent. It's one thing that I wanted to look up, and it's Brock Purdy's schedule on this win streak. So he came in the game against the Dolphins where they already had, I think, a little bit of a lead, and he played well in that game. Dolphins are a pretty good team, but not a very good defense. And then they absolutely destroyed the Buccaneers where the defense just murdered the Bucs. They beat the Seahawks, who, you can say what you want.
Not that one.
Yeah. Then they beat the Commanders, and then they beat the Raiders, and then they beat the Kyler Murray-less Cardinals. And Brock Purdy did play well in all those games. I just, I don't know. I think they're a little bit fraudulent, but I like what you said about you would tell people to throw down $50 on the Bengals, the Bills, and the Chiefs, because I think one of those three teams is winning the Super Bowl. That's the surest bet you can make. Whoever they're up against the NFC, I don't know if it matters. But yeah, this has been fun. I've enjoyed it. And the last thing I want to bring up is that Michael brought up how Patrick Mahomes' family is a little bit annoying. I agree. If Mahomes wants to prove that he's the GOAT, like Tom Brady, who walked away from a supermodel for this game, all he has to do is cut off his, his
brother.
Easier said than done. Mahomes, you want to get in the GOAT conversation, get it done, brother.
Yeah, great. No, guys, I genuinely had a great time talking some football with you guys. We all had some very fun takes, very interesting ways to getting to the Super Bowl. We had some big upsets with it being the Seahawks, with the Bucs making it the NFC Championship, and then our AFC brackets were all kind of chalk. Any final thoughts before we wrap everything up?
Don't think about it. Just trust me. Hawks, money line. Go make yourself some money. Have a good weekend. All right.
Yeah,
Spence?
my only last thought is just I don't know why I have Brady making the NFC Championship game with this terrible team, but it just trust me, it's going to happen. And yeah, I had fun. Love talking ball. Happy to show up. Baseball, football, basketball, whatever it is, whenever you want me. So yeah, I had a good time.
Yeah, once again, thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Michael. Thanks everybody that's still here watching. It's been a pleasure. Third episode in, plenty of more to go. Guys, I appreciate you guys coming on. And with that being said, it's your boy, the man, the myth, the legend, RizPod, wrapping up another episode of the RizPod. Bye, guys.
All right, see you guys.